It did. Wow, that thing really works. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tempe City Council special meeting on the Harry E. Mitchell Government Center. Item number one is the call to order. Members of the public who attend the meeting physically are asked to maintain distance between other parties, and masks are optional for all attendees per City of Tempe policy. Alternatively, members of the public may attend the meeting virtually through Cisco WebEx events by visiting tempe.gov/councilmeetinginfo for more information. Council meetings can also be watched in real time via Cox Cable Channel 11 and at tempe.gov/tempe11. The first section on the agenda tonight is ordinances and items for first introduction and first hearing. These items will be read and introduced tonight, but no votes will be taken. The second hearing and vote for these items is scheduled for November 29th, 2022. First item under section 2 is 2A here. Introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt a resolution authorizing a general plan projected land map use amendment from commercial to mixed use for approximately 34.4 acres, a general plan projected density map amendment from no density to high density urban core, which is more than 65 dwelling units per acre, for approximately 34.4 acres, to adopt an ordinance for a zoning map amendment from R16 RSOD and GID ROSOD to GIOD to MU4 RSOD for approximately 46.26 acres, and a planned area development overlay to establish development standards for the Tempe Entertainment District located on 53 South Priest Drive, consisting of varying heights up to 129 feet, 2,100 dwelling units, and commercial consisting of a multi-purpose entertainment facility, retail, restaurant, hotel, and office uses. The applicant is Snell and Wilmer. All right, so I'm going to turn to the applicant here. I see Mr. Wood from Snell and Wilmer. I will go ahead and let you start. And just to let everyone know the order of things this evening, we're going to have the presentation by the applicant, followed by staff presentations. Mr. Wood, he's got the clicker for you. And after the staff presentations, then we're going to get to public comment. So I've got a bunch of cards here, and we will make sure that everyone gets their opportunity to speak. So first, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wood.
Mayor and members of the council, Nick Wood, Snell and Wilmer, 1 East Washington Street, Phoenix, Arizona. I represent the Coyotes and Bluebird. I apologize, but I broke my belt coming in here, so I'm going to be pulling up my pants once in a while.
Should make for an interesting hearing, Mr. Wood.
Each time, thank God they're not too loose. Each time I come here, I talk a little bit about, my father's guiding principles. And I use those really in my practice and in my everyday life. This one is really, don't just focus on the destination, enjoy the ride. Well, we've been on a hell of a ride with this project, and we're getting close to the end, but there's quite a ways to go. So the first one really has to do with the zoning and the general plan amendment. As you can see here on this first slide, this is the vision that Mr. Morello has for the site, and it's extraordinary. This is what we have today, and that's also extraordinary. We'll be talking, when we get to the DDA, we'll be talking really about all the things that have to occur in order to convert this to that. But Mr. Morello's vision really started with this, and that is on 46 acres of land. We have a combination of a 6,000-seat arena, 54,000 square feet, headquarters and practice facility, a theater venue, retail center in the first phase, 1 hotel in the first phase, 194 units in the first phase, and 160,000 square feet of office building. Again, all Class A office. Phase 2 is to the left of that broken line, where we have 1,800 residential units, 225,000 neighborhood retail square feet, and 300 hotel rooms, and again, more office. This project is 4.25 million square feet. Just to give you a thought regarding relationship, Tempe Marketplace is 1.3 million square feet. The State Farm project is 2 million square feet. And this one, of course, is more than twice that at 4,025,000 square feet. This is our planned area development. This is really our site plan. And this basically reflects what you just saw on the screen. We've broken this up really into sites. Now, ordinarily, I would be here with one other application, and that's with a DPR, Development Plan Review. Ordinarily, we would come to you not with just the zoning case. We would also come with a site plan, building elevations, and landscape plan for the entire project. Well, this project is so large and so massive, we can't possibly do that, particularly since we don't even know if we have a project until you actually act next week, and then it ends up going to the voters. So what we've done is we've submitted a DPR, and that was done just a couple of weeks ago, on the first office building that's in phase 1, and that's really the letter C that's down in the right-hand corner. But essentially, this will be built in phases. The arena and arena components will be the first one. And again, we'll talk about that in the next session. Here's our development standards and the comparison of what we have today. Today, believe it or not, this thing is zoned GID, which is light industrial. It's also zoned R16, right, which is single-family home residential. We've heard from our friends at the airport that that is forbidden, and in fact, it is forbidden. It's not permitted, although multifamily certainly is permitted in the 65 decibel level noise contour. Clearly, one single-family home on a single lot is not. So we're changing that. We're going from 4 dwelling units per acre really to 43 dwelling units per acre. Now, when you look at the number of units that we have permitted under the proposed zoning, it doesn't seem like much, but remember, we have a 46-acre site. Building heights, we go from 30 feet and 35 feet respectively in R16 and GID to a maximum of 129. Now, we don't think any of our buildings will reach 129, but you know, the way that you measure height here in Tempe is a little different than in other cities. You measure it from the nearest curb. So obviously, when you have a site that is this large, the nearest curb may actually have some grade separation. So we've left some flexibility, but the tallest buildings really will be about 120 feet from finished grade to the top. Lot coverage, again, we've left ourselves some flexibility at 90 to 95%, minimum landscape areas of 5 to 10%, and then of course we have setbacks from Priest Drive, Rio Salado, north and east. Parking. One of the things that we've received a number of questions about, and that's traffic and parking. What's going to be the parking demand on this particular project, and how are we going to respond to that? How are we going to handle traffic? How are we going to keep cars from going into the neighborhoods to the south? So basically, we've broken down, with the help of Dawn Cartier, who's going to speak here in a few minutes, on traffic. She's our traffic engineer. I think you're all very familiar with Dawn. She's the best in the state. But we've broken it down for the 16,000 seats, really at about 3,200 spaces. And then we've broken it down by bedroom, we've broken it down by guest, office, hotel, retail, theater. So really, we need about 9,614 parking spaces. We're providing 6,000, almost 7,000 on site. So we have to make up about 2,700 spaces. We'll do that in a combination of things. One is what's called the shared parking model. As you know, different uses have different parking demands at different times of the day. Offices, for example, their demand is daily. It starts in the morning when people go to work, and it ends at night when they go home. And then all through the evening, those parking structures sit empty. And Dawn is going to point some of those out and how they work. And as far as traffic is concerned, I want to bring something for you for consideration. It's on this slide. You can see where the Tempe Entertainment District is located at the intersection, again, of Priest and Rio Salado. You can see it there a little bit to the left. But then over to the right, you can see where Sun Devil Stadium is located. And when you look at the relationship of Tempe Entertainment District to the freeway on off ramps, right, just basically right up Priest, just to the north. And then you look at the relationship of Sun Devil Stadium to the freeway. Our access to the freeway is much better than what Sun Devil Stadium has to deal with, because again, we're just right up Priest, whereas they have to go around. The other thing is we have 16,000 seats, whereas Sun Devil Stadium has 54,000. So when they have a game, there could be up to 54,000 people there. We have 16,000 seats in our arena. So our ability to handle traffic circulation, traffic movements on and off the site and in the general area is much easier. The best part is the city of Tempe, more than anyone, has the best experience of anyone in the state at managing traffic, right? Because you've been doing it in Sun Devil Stadium for so long. And one of the things that we will do when it comes to controlling traffic is we will contract with the city of Tempe, using, off-duty police officers, for example, to help us manage that. And Mayor, with your permission, I will bring up Dawn Cartier, and she will walk you through exactly how that's all going to happen. One other thing I want to mention before I do that. There's also things that we're doing to reduce the number of cars that actually come to the site. So, for example, we're going to partner with Valley Metro Rail. Our arena tickets will also be used as tickets for light rail, encouraging people to use light rail. We'll have free shuttles that basically go back and forth from the arena to the light rail stations, both on north as well as on the east. We're going to partner with Orbit so we can increase the shuttle movement of Orbit, especially on game days or at event days. We're going to grant an easement, hopefully for the extension of the streetcar. One of the things that you're very aware of is, we'd love to have the streetcar come this way, but, the federal government says, what is the demand? We're not going to pay money, right, if there's no demand. Well, we believe that this project will create that demand, and as a result, we're going to provide that easement to the extent that that can happen. And then, of course, vehicular ride-sharing services and other partnerships, and we'll get into that a little bit more when we get to the DDA. But again, Mayor, with your permission, I'll call up Dawn Cartier.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Don?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dawn Cartier with CivTech 10605 North Hayden Road. What you have in front of you right here is a graphic of all of the parking that's available both now and in the future in and around the site, the proposed stadium. And the beautiful thing about parking and an event, and I'm going to speak more to the event first and kind of back into the day-to-day. But on the event side, we've got office surrounding south and west, and even some excess parking on the north at Papago Grand. So times where we're going to be needing this excess parking and people will drive, which we're hoping most will not drive, but the ones that do, they'll have the ability to park where there's office. Office is a big daytime use, Monday through Friday, leaving all of that parking vacant and available for shared parking on evenings and weekends, which tends to align very closely with the event. The center itself, the whole entertainment district itself will self-park on its day-to-day. So there's not anything here where we'll be looking for excess parking for the typical operation on a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Let me see if I got it. Talking about encouraging use of transit, and Nick had mentioned that the tickets will be used or be able to be used for light rail, and that will be highly encouraged. We're providing shuttles at each of the light rail stations, both at Priest and Washington and right off at 3rd and Mill. Those will be, the shuttle routes will be running pre and post event where we can pick people up. Really, we are close enough for many people to walk, but those who don't want to walk, we'll be able to bring them by shuttle. Shuttle frequency, we've done some early planning on that, but the nice thing about shuttles and rubber tires is that we can adjust frequency if we need to. Adjust numbers, adjust frequency, make sure we're meeting the demand. It's a little different, not too much here of a nuance between the drop-off and the pickup, in terms of getting to and from, other than how we use that parking lot, but literally shifting that shuttle backwards, getting people back to light rail so that they can get where they need to go. And I've heard a lot, just listening to neighbors and at the neighborhood meetings, event access management, and talking with the team. They are planning on contracting with the city to do the event management. Your transportation staff does that all the time. They do it very well. But one of our suggestions here is that we really look at how to restrict access to and around the neighborhoods. That's primarily what this slide is showing. We want the neighborhoods to be protected, putting up signs that those roads are closed to anyone other than local neighborhood, the local neighbors, giving everybody really clear direction on staying on the major routes. And then in terms of access management, making sure that they're getting directed into parking and we get that done efficiently. It's really that movement of efficiency into parking that will allow those neighbors to not feel any of the demand of an event. So we'll be working with your city staff in order to do that. But I am here if you have any other questions as we get to the end of presentations.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And I think council, what we'll try to do is let the team get through their entire presentation, and we'll save our questions for the end, if that's okay. Great. Mr. Wood?
Mayor, members of the council, we come here tonight with staff's recommendation of approval. We also received recommendation of approval from DRC, 7-0. We negotiated with staff for the stipulations that are attached to the staff report, really stipulations 1 through 18. We're very comfortable with them. We're not going to be asking for any modifications to any of those stipulations. The other thing that we're here to do is to amend the general plan. The general plan right now calls for commercial use. And of course, when we're going to be doing all of the things we're doing in the project, we have to modify the general plan to do that. And really, especially with respect to the residential component. So what we're doing is we're taking the general plans that exist today, and we're modifying it to create the gray, which is mixed use, and retaining the red, where the arena and all the arena-related commercial components will remain. In addition, the density map, again, is part of the general plan. Right now, it calls for low density, R16 density. And of course, we're changing that to the high density urban core, which is 65 dwelling units per acre or more. And with that, Mayor, Council, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Council, any comments or questions? I'll ask to Vice Mayor Adams, anything?
Oh, no, Mr. Mayor, it totally made sense to me. Thank
Okay.
you for asking.
Thank you. Okay. So next up here, we're going to turn to our staff. We first got here Ryan Levake, who's our Deputy Community Development Director for Planning, and he's going to kind of do an overview of the request and sort of recommended conditions.
Different presentation. No one said Ted zoning. One moment, please. That's what you said was number 2.
Yeah, she was combined with Nick, so you.
Oh, it's the same one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ryan, can you come over here for just a
Oh,
second?
yeah.
I'm not sure which one is yours. Got this. Got this. That was marked as number 3, is that? Okay, great, here we go. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'll go over the general plan land use and zoning map amendment request for you tonight based on staff's recommendations. The item before you tonight. So this request includes the general plan land use map amendment, the general plan protection density map amendment, zoning map amendment, and the planned area development overlay to establish specific development standards for the site known as the Tempe Entertainment District. Various standards will include heights up to 129 feet, up to 2,100 dwelling units, and the commercial land uses that were presented tonight. Again, this is a comparison of the maps that was shown and provided by the applicant tonight. We have the current zoning district designations for the part of the site. The north portion is currently zoned R16 single family, and the south 2/3 of the property site is zoned general industrial overlay. Here are the development standards proposed for the planned area development, which includes 1,995 units. They're identifying a maximum 2,100 units so they can have some flexibility as each development plan comes in through the project site. And they're estimating the number of bedrooms, 2 and 3 bedrooms and 1 bedroom units within those unit types, a total of 500 hotel rooms, establishing the standards for lot coverage, setbacks, height, again, varying heights throughout the building sites, and then also the landscape and parking requirements for the site. This is a depiction of the site plan shown in phase 1 and phase 2 lines that jogs through the property site. Each site area is identified by a site number. So as each phase is ready to submit for development plan reviews, the applicant will file those development plans for each building site. They'll have to go through another design review entitlement process by you all, City Council. So the applicant held a required neighborhood meeting for this project site. It was held on October 15th, 2022 at the Canopy Hilton. City staff attended the meeting. We had 35 members of the public participating in the process. Some of those discussions included conversations about the flight path questions, noise from their airplanes within the area, whether this project will increase taxes for Tempe residents, discussions about the IGA between the City of Tempe and City of Phoenix, anticipation of major concerts and other events as a result of this development, discussions about the team's history with the City of Glendale, discussions regarding opportunities for other events that may come to the site, like Comic-Con International, implications of environmental issues or cleanup opportunities, and the incorporation of additional public art within the Rio Salado multi-use path levy area. We had also the Development Review Commission hearing that was held on November 15th. We received 10 comments from the public on that agenda, 1 in support, 8 in opposition, and 1 expressing neither support or opposition. We also had 5 speaker cards read at the hearing for the DRC, and then a City of Phoenix statement regarding asserting their position regarding inclusion of residential would be in a violation of the intergovernmental agreement between City of Phoenix and Tempe. Staff is recommending approval of this request subject to the conditions identified by the applicant. The applicant has reviewed and agreed with those conditions. As stated before, the DRC proposed a recommendation of approval 7-0 with no changes. Of those 18 conditions, we do have 15 unique conditions. I'll also state and note that some of them have similar conditions related to the development agreement. They'll be presented tonight as well. And it should be noted that any conflict between the terms of the DDA and those proposed conditions, the DDA shall prevail in those similar languages. So I'll briefly go over those specific unique conditions for this project request. Again, we're looking at capping the maximum density of no more than 2,100 dwelling units and the maximum overall building height of 129 feet, including all mechanical and features. There's the site 1. We're excluding residential density from that site. It would require a major amendment to the general plan if residential was proposed in that area. Condition number 6 talks about the on-site parking reductions and working with the applicant is agreement to do a shared parking study with developing a parking management plan for that effort. We also have condition 7 with the developer providing vehicle cross-access connection with Idea Campus to the east. This will improve some of those efficiencies and circulation for vehicles and pedestrians throughout the area. Developer also must receive a final traffic impact study, including trip reduction plan as the processing of these development plans come in. So working with the developer and the transportation division to get those traffic impact studies finalized as each development phase comes in. Developer, again, as stated before, shall dedicate a 14-foot transit easement for future potential use of streetcar. We also have the developer condition requirement for a publicly accessible pedestrian and bike route extending from Back Avenue through the property site to the Tempe Levee South Bank. And then a condition regarding future dedicated bus bays and bus shelters that would be provided as development plan review applications come in. Condition number 12 is related to a development agreement item. The developer shall grant and record a navigation easement with the City of Phoenix. And condition 13 requires an FAA review to the form 7460-1, which is looking for a determination of no hazard for the project site. Developer also is required to record notice to prospective purchasers for the proximity of the airport in order to disclose existence of operational characteristics of Phoenix Sky Harbor. And condition 15 discusses the developer to ensure that the residential lease owners of the property are notified and are aware of tenant use of the site in proximity to the Phoenix Sky Harbor as well. We have a proposed condition regarding 2 existing POW war barracks that exist on the site today. We're looking to get those POW barracks relocated to a future to be determined site. So we're working with best efforts to communicate and work with the developer to get those PW barracks relocated at the expense with the developer. Condition number 17 describes easements existing, or sewer lines and sewer metering stations that exist along Priest Drive. We need to dedicate easements for those areas. And then condition number 18 describes an existing flood control access easement that's on the property that needs to be relocated and dedicated, subject to flood controls review. And those are the 18 conditions that are proposed within the staff report. Again, the aerial images and photos of the proposed development. And unless council has any questions for staff at this time, we'll then take it over for traffic impact study overview.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ryan. Any comments or questions from council? Just one for me, Ryan. Can you explain just to members of the public, I don't remember if it was item 11 or 12, but what an navigation easement actually is?
It wasn't condition 11. Okay, condition 12, yes. Recording navigation easement. So this is for protection of air rights to allow and avoid any disturbance of airline flights that would pass over this area from within the area. So we're creating an easement that will allow that and not create any restrictions in the future for navigation use in that area over this designated project site.
Thank you. Councilmember Garland?
I just have one on number 3. It talks about that an agreement must be done within 60 days of the council approval on this. Is it council approval or is it then voter approval date?
That's a standard condition of approval of the PAD format itself. So what we do is work with the developer to make sure that we put all the conditions of approval if the project is approved within the format of the planned area development overlay, and then it's recorded on file with the City of Tempe's Community Development Office. So the approval by council is what we're looking to record that final document.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Any other council members, additional comments or questions on anything? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. All right. Next up, I see Shelley Seiler approaching, our Deputy Engineering and Transportation Director.
That's correct. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Shelley Seiler, Deputy Engineering and Transportation Director. You received information from the developer's representative as well as their traffic consultant. I'm going to provide some information to you today on the key findings and strategies that our staff has identified, that were identified in the traffic impact study. As presented, the development will include 4 phases. The transportation impact study did analyze those for phase 1A and 1B. Those would be built and were analyzed in year 2025. And then phase 2A and 2B were analyzed in year 2030. So opening year, that 2025, the development is expected to generate about 10,600 trips a day. We really focus on the AM and PM peak hours because that's when the city sees the highest level of congestion. So in that opening year, we're expecting about 480 trips in the AM peak hour and about 674 in the PM peak hour. At the build-out year, 2030 again, the development is expected to generate about 25,600 trips a day, 1,350 in the AM peak hour and 1,688 in the AM peak hour, 1688 in the PM peak hour. They also did look at the event scenario. The event scenario does not correspond with our PM peak hour, so they looked at the 6 p.m. time frame. During an event scenario, we're looking at about 7,667 daily trips, 2,900 of those coming inbound, and then about 4,767 going outbound. As Ryan mentioned, as each phase of this development comes in, the city will be reviewing that against the trip generation and square footages proposals that were in this final traffic impact study. If there are any differences, we will be asking for an update at that time. The development does propose 5 access points. You can see them on the lower right-hand screen, A, B, C, D, and E. B and D are proposed as full access signalized intersections, whereas A, C, and E will be right in, right out only. So I just wanted to give a little context as to what is happening in this area. Not surprising, the Priest Drive between Rio Salado and the 202 does have the highest level of daily trips at about 54,500. As you travel further south, we do see a little bit of a decrease. And you can see that Rio Salado does not carry near the volume that Priest does. Not surprising, because that Priest, again, is that direct access to the 202. So finally, just getting to those key findings and strategies that staff identified. All study intersections will operate within acceptable levels of service with mitigation, except the intersections of Priest and the 202 and Priest and Liberty Way. That is why a signal is being proposed at that location of Priest and Liberty Way. The mitigation measures did include, again, the signalization and then adjustments to timing. On an average PM peak, drivers will be experiencing about 35 to 55 seconds of delay per movement, with some movements actually exceeding that. So you might wonder, okay, what does that mean to the average person? It means that the delay is approaching, it's a tolerable delay. However, people will likely have to wait through more than one cycle to proceed in the direction that they are traveling. Not uncommon. We see that in many areas of the city, especially adjacent to the downtown. Some key strategies and mitigation measures. Infrastructure improvements will be needed in the area, and as identified in the transportation impact study. And as we receive more information on those, we would then work to get those implemented. Those could include dual left turn lanes, right turn lanes, expansion of the intersection in order to accommodate the traffic. Implementation of demand management, transportation demand management strategies will be key for this development in order to reduce congestion and delay in the area. We also would like to see enhancements of existing Route 48 and 56. Route 48 currently does not operate at the level of our other arterial bus routes, so we would like to see that enhancement, as well as the extension of Orbit Venus to this area. Also, as Don Cartier mentioned, implementation of strategies in order to limit the amount of cut-through traffic that does go into our neighborhood during event. And we will be working with our police department and the promoter to develop plans and adjust those as necessary as we start up those events and see them. And then finally, as always, we will be looking to optimize timing for inbound and outbound attendees to our events. We do this today for ASU football games and other events, so it's not something that is new to the city. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Shelley. Really appreciate it. Anyone on council, comments or questions? Oh, Councilmember Garland?
So do you look at traffic study taking into consideration if there is a game or a concert on that facility and something going on at TCA, something going on at Tempe Town Lake?
That scenario wasn't analyzed. It's not that it can't be, but typically what we would do is look at those when they are happening to see how we need to adjust things. We have our Transportation Management Center, which I know many of you have gone to and stuff. We watch real time and make adjustments. I would say that's the most effective way for us to really manage multiple events at the same time.
Okay, I'm just curious because there's a lot going on in that small area, and if there's multiple events going on, that would be additional traffic and slow time.
And it's not uncommon for us to see multiple events, and we'll have a football game, an event in Tempe Beach Park. So again, that's something that our staff has become very good at managing.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilmember DeVar?
Well, just to add, I remember when we had the Fiesta Bowl and then the New Year's Eve party, and that was quite an event that we handled. And I have to say, though, we've been doing that for several years and having a large scale, I call it a mega event, but I think that your staff and what we've been doing over the years, and actually just learning about our traffic studies and what we can do to implement hopefully more efficiently, I think that it's kudos to what we do here in Tempe, so appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember DeVar. Anyone else? Council, comments, questions? All right. Thank you, Shelley. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to now turn to the speaker cards that I have with me here, and I will read those in the order that I received them. There were a couple actually who were duplicates, and a couple I'll probably need some clarification from members of the audience. But with that, I'm going to start with the first one. The first speaker is John Stevenson. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
I'm like going first, right? Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is John Stevenson. I live at 9022 South Ash Avenue in Tempe. In studying the development agreement, I came away more than satisfied that what the city is gaining greatly outweighs what we're giving up. I ask you to vote yes tonight. This property presents a huge opportunity for all of us. However, with the current usage as a landfill and remediation costs estimated to be $74 million, the need for a creative approach is absolutely necessary. I'd like to talk about two things, on balance sheet and off balance sheet. First, the balance sheet of the deal. The estimate of the total economic impact over 30 years is $13.6 billion. That's $13.6 billion, replacing $0. I don't think in the history of Tempe there's been ever anything like this that could provide that economic boom for the city. The estimate of $200 billion in public benefits far exceed the concessions, and we all know by law that has to be the case. In addition, you've been able to include Tempe, Arizona as part of the facility name on the ice and use of the music venue, a 1,500 square foot public safety facility, and a 3,000 square foot office space at no cost to taxpayers, and $1,764,000 each year for education and public improvements. I actually sat down and did the math. On top of that, there's over $10.5 million in one-time payments for education, affordable housing, city enhancements, and this is all on top of 3,300 new full-time jobs, not including the temporary construction jobs, both union and non-union. The addition of the significant multifamily component is desperately needed in Tempe, as we have been much more successful in creating jobs than we have been at creating housing. Second, the off-balance sheet items, because deals have people, they have things that just don't show up on qualitative analysis. This deal will raise Tempe's profile on a local, statewide, and national level. The inclusion of Tempe, the name on the ice, signage, and arena is fantastic and will help the city and private businesses in recruiting, economic development, economic activity, financing, and provide more diverse entertainment offerings to residents and visitors, including an NHL draft and an NHL All-Star game. Lastly, I'd like to make note of some of the people on the buy side. Sometimes we forget the people involved here. Alex Murillo, who I don't know, is owner of the Coyotes, is a first-generation American and first Latino owner in the NHL. Xavier Gutierrez, CEO, is the first Hispanic chief executive officer in the NHL. And with one of the most diverse communities in the Phoenix MSA and minority enrollment at Tempe Union at 64%, with a majority Hispanic, continued strong representation in our local citizenry and business community really matters. Marina Carpenter, Executive Vice President and General Counsel, they're all local. They have ties here. The deal and the people behind that, I think, is a benefit to the city. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next up, I previously had a speaker, Barb Harris, but who was unable to be here tonight, so council just wanted to note that she actually has submitted her comments for the record, so you'll have an opportunity to take a look at those. Madam Clerk, I assume she didn't want them read into the record, but just given to us? Okay, sounds good. All right, next speaker I have is Robin Reed. Is Robin Reed here? Okay. No Robin?
Mr. Mayor, Robin Reed is virtual.
Oh, okay. Okay, no, it said in person here, so I was looking. All right.
Good evening, Mayor Woods and members of the Tempe City Council. Thank you so much. I regret that I wasn't able to be there in person this evening, but I will certainly be there next week in person. My name is Robin Reed. I am the president and CEO of the Black Chamber of Arizona. I'm also a co-founder of the Community Collaborative, which is a 35-member organization of all community leaders in and around the state of Arizona, where we have worked together to get rid of the siloed way that community organizations work together. And so many of the issues that are being proposed within the Tempe Entertainment District opportunity are the issues that we discuss. I have enjoyed hearing everyone talk about many of the logistics. I'm going to talk about the community impact. Number one, this is going to create 7,000 permanent jobs. That's permanent jobs. So not just the project of building, but ongoing employment, which is a key issue. Something is near and dear to my heart, but cleaning up the landfill, removing literally tons of trash from inside the city limits of Tempe to develop this project. And lastly, but certainly not of least importance, is the ongoing contribution that this organization will be making to affordable housing, education, law enforcement, and first responders is critical. And then I'm just going to touch on something because the last gentleman mentioned it. But as we look at Javier and members of the leadership of the Coyotes, it must be a very proud moment within the Hispanic community to see these leaders doing such great work. But equally important, with 50% of our students now K through 12 being of Hispanic descent, this is the example for them. They're seeing the opportunity of where they can succeed within their culture, and that's something we can't lose sight of. This is a very important time, and I strongly encourage the Tempe City Council to approve this Tempe Entertainment District proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Really appreciate it. Next speaker I have is virtual this evening is David Sokolowski. Please state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is David Sokolowski. I live in Tempe. This is 46 acres of city-owned land, and we really need to leverage this land to the best of our ability. Future generations won't have land to negotiate for affordable housing. It could cost our city $100 million just to house people who work at the Tempe Entertainment District. Are we supposed to tell future generations that we sold our land for naming rights? At the June special meeting, I heard the developer say they would create 7,000 jobs, but recently I read it's 3,300. That's a huge difference. Either way, the vacancy rate for low-income apartments is basically at 0%. Even a small number of low-income workers could overwhelm our city's services. Where are we going to house thousands of low-income workers? Another concern I have is transportation. I serve on Tempe's Transportation Commission. I volunteer with Valley Metro to improve bus service and conduct ADA compliance checks. I even help the city design new bus stop shelters. I've been involved with literally every aspect of our transportation system. I asked the city to plan for a streetcar extension on Rio to Priest. I think extending the streetcar is way more valuable than elevating a light rail station. However, the city didn't seem to agree with me. And as of right now, there aren't any plans for streetcar extension. There isn't any funding to study or design the extension. And technically, we don't even have any funding for construction after the veto of Prop 400. We need to be honest and realistic about approving such a massive development project. How will you explain to Tempe residents that we're not actually planning to construct a streetcar? I would expect to see streetcar planning in Tempe's plans, but I know it's not included in the budget. I have supported every development project in Tempe. Between council communicators and public appearances, it's clear I'm very supportive of new development projects. This is literally the very first time I've ever asked the city council to oppose a development project. We need a development deal that will benefit our city, and I don't think that this is the right one. So please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next speaker I have is Maha Al-Shamari. Maha Al-Shamari?
Yes.
Oh, yes, please.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'd like to begin by thanking the City Council for giving me another chance to voice my concern against this project. So in my last statement, I voiced concern not only for the affordable housing, which I understand we have touched base on, and I would like to further read more about it. I also included the topic of safety. So that is something that I feel is very ignored about this project. We're thinking of adding a whole mix of development, but nobody is talking about what we're currently facing in the city with the number of crimes. So the biggest proponent here of the city in itself is with a small cluster, you're just thinking of increasing the numbers of people, and that's not necessarily taking out the equation of the homeless who are often committing the crimes around the area, and it's not necessarily taking into consideration the people who come and just hang around the Tempe Beach Park area and don't necessarily have a real purpose other than to cause trouble. And I myself have been a victim of trouble in this specific area. So now considering that, you're adding to a $2.1 billion project with its almost get out of jail free card for these people. And you're not necessarily specifying who is going to be making up the difference in the project, because I'm only seeing the numbers of proposals of possible office spaces. We're seeing possible restaurant spaces. If you look around Mill Avenue is practically empty. So how are you proposing that this isn't going to impact the property taxes or the property tax level if you're adding an entertainment district? I already have to pay a luxury tax rate for my apartment space that I live in the Riverside community. So I think that you're not necessarily specifying in a larger scale is how is this going to impact future housing? I've heard previous comments that have made all the sense. However, there are a lot of proponents that are not being answered, and it's very unfair to the hardworking tax people like myself. I pay taxes and I travel in and around the area, and I would be greatly affected with the traffic that would be impacted, especially around 6 p.m. in the evening, as that's the time I usually finish my work. So I don't necessarily see how this could be a positive for the city other than putting cash in somebody's pocket. We're not necessarily addressing all the other issues. And that's where I ask and I plead that the members hear the community out, especially in this subject, because like the previous comment mentioned, there are a lot of what we call affordable housing, but it's all guised with the idea of its luxury housing. So I've lived here since 2017, and I've seen the impact of the rising rates that have been affected even before COVID.
Ms. Alshamar, I'm
We
going to
had
have to,
what we call the luxury.
I'm gonna have to
Yes,
give you another
sorry.
15 seconds. I need you to wrap up. I'm sorry.
And that's okay. And I thank you for this time, but I ask that if please any support to vote no on this proposal, as there's far more drawbacks as there are benefits to the people who currently live here and want to make it a permanent home. Thank you so much, and I appreciate this time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments. Next speaker I have is Zach Willman. Is Zach Willman here in person or virtually? No? Okay. The next speaker I have is Kim Gaffney-Loza. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Kim Gaffney-Loza. I am a resident of North Tempe for the last 16 years. And tonight I am speaking in favor of the proposed Tempe Entertainment District. Not as anybody that is particularly interested in hockey, because I'm not, but as someone who believes this is a good opportunity for the city. It is an area that I believe needs to be activated, and I think this proposal will help activate that area. The site is close to transportation hubs. While it will cause increased traffic, there is not much congestion presently in that area except at rush hour times getting on and off the 202. And I think that traffic can be easily managed. I often take that route going south in Tempe because I find it less congested than Scottsdale Road, which is more direct. This property will be purchased rather than leased, which will take the burden of maintenance off the city. This has been a contentious issue with other sports facilities and government entities. Working at Chase Field, a closed-roof stadium, during concert there is very little sound that escapes, even when I am ticketing outside the gates, and I know that sound has been a concern for a lot of residents. Remediation of this land will be expensive, for any venture and would make it impractical for affordable housing development without significant investment by the city that would likely raise taxes in that case. I love the investment in art on the site and the investment in community projects. The $40 million non-refundable escrow is a good faith gesture that, to me, shows that Bluebird Group's commitment to success for themselves and the city. I like the marketing of Tempe in this development, and I think it will help other aspects of the community and our economic development. The airport scare tactics are reprehensible to me, since they already violate the IGA, and from my understanding, the FAA will be consulted along the way in the development. Most of all, I trust Tempe staff and our mayor and council to have thoroughly vetted this project, and I thank them for giving us a chance to actually decide in an election. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Ms. Gaffney-Loza. Appreciate it. Next speaker we have this evening is Amy McNamara. No? Okay, no? Okay. All right, so sounds good. Thank you. The next speaker I have is Louis Olivas. Dr. Olivas, good to see you again. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Mayor, it's great to see you. Mayor Woods, council members, good evening. I am Dr. Louis Olivas. I reside at 1835 East Cornell Drive in Tempe, a resident for almost 50 years. When we moved out, Tempe, McClintock, and Baseline was a 2-way intersection, 4-way stop sign, and at a great distance, you could see the lights of Mill Avenue way back in those good old days. I've been an educator for close to 50 years. My synergy focuses on education, community, and leadership. I've done my due diligence, looking at not only what the city staffers have provided, but also what the Arizona Coyotes plan has presented. I want you to envision, in the near future, a commercial that's going to say, "Welcome to the NHL All-Star Hockey Night, live from Tempe, Arizona." And all across America and Canada included, they're going to be saying, "Where in the hell is Tempe, Arizona?" Yes, we will be on the map. You've heard the presentation on economics. I won't bore you with, obviously, the investments, the leverages, and the benefits that we're receiving. While they may be new to the community, the Arizona Coyotes staff, including the president, is already active. I've met with them. We've had Javier Gutierrez as a speaker at Arizona State University. And I don't know if you're aware, but he was named more recently as the Presidential Professor of Practice, W.P. Carey School of Business and Finance. And I don't know how they cut this deal, but it's going to cost us $0. Thank you, Javier, for doing so. I've also met more recently with the foundation staff of the Arizona Cardinals. They're already thinking and asking us, what could we do educational-wise? How about Hockey 101 for we residents, community, college students, university students, and high school students don't understand what's hockey about. But more importantly, what is the business side of hockey? The finance, the marketing, the operations, the personnel. Let us learn about what this business is all about. In essence, the Arizona Coyotes have a potential to be an educator in our community. Look, I'm a retired professor. For 35 years, I was at Arizona State University. My specialty, entrepreneurial studies, small business management. One thing I always tell my former students who have businesses all around the world, 3 important points. This is the Cliff Note version that I'm going to give you. If you don't understand Cliff Note, that means you're younger than 50. So here you go. Do your homework and design a plan. You've heard that tonight. Number 2, do you have the key resources and funding? Yes, they do. Number 3, does your business add value to the community? They are proving that already. So I ask our city council and the residents of this great city, evolving city, get behind this initiative. eventually vote yes in the acceptance of what's been before us here. In summary, the city of Tempe was outmaneuvered in getting us the Arizona Coyotes. Don't blow it. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Buenas noches.
Thank you, Dr. Olivas. Appreciate it. Next speaker I have this evening is Darlene Justice. Please come forward and state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Darlene Justice. I live in North Tempe. I've lived there going on 57 years. I have two things I'd like to talk about. One is the North Tempe Neighborhood Association some years ago actually went to the Coyotes on the west side, and we did a 50-50 with them. We bought our own tickets to go. We were treated very, very well. We sold tickets during the event that helped us get money for our Picnic in the Park event. So we sold raffle tickets, and at intermission time, they did a 50-50, and we were able to get half of the funds. They were so great to us. We had a disabled person with us who had the best time, and anyway, we would have done more of it, but it was a long, long trip. And so think about it, it won't be so long anymore. The other thing I'd like to talk about, I have something I'm going to send out to you all, but I edited it today. It is very interesting that I and many other North Tempe neighbors did not receive the threatening postcard from Phoenix Sky Harbor. We are Tempe citizens living in single-family homes. Those homes are the closest to the threatened deviation and departures flights that they are talking about. If the proposed entertainment district includes multifamily dwellings, they are holding this over us. We are Tempe citizens who have interacted with Phoenix, the FAA, regarding the IGA, Phoenix Sky Harbor flight tracks, and previous aviation noise issues over many years. I personally have written letters to the FAA and had responses, and we have tried to work very well with Phoenix Sky Harbor, sometimes not so great. We are Tempe citizens who understand that the IGA does not restrict the proposed multifamily developments. Phoenix Sky Harbor is threatening to abandon Tempe's IGA. If you remember, a couple years ago, they actually deviated the departures over their own neighborhoods down Grand Avenue over a lot of homes and historic areas. They sued Sky Harbor. They won, and things were changed back because they couldn't just go and deviate it and change the quality of life of people underneath there. So I want to say that please don't listen to some of that. And I'm very sad that they sent these postcards out threatening to Scottsdale and other locations. I fully support this event. I think that it will change times for a lot of people and help our youth have a great place to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Justice. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have is David Duaron. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
That's a hard act to follow. My name is David Duaron. I live at 332 Epley in Tempe. And ladies and gentlemen and sports fans, I bring a unique set of 5 credentials to the question of Tempe and Sky Harbor interaction. I doubt that there's anybody here that has all 5. Tempe has been my hometown since 1958. I'm a relative newcomer. I went to grade school, high school, and college here. I care about this city. I have flown light airplanes in and out of Sky Harbor. I was a flight examiner, aircraft commander in the Air Force, and I have flown heavy jet transports in and out of Sky Harbor. I was a captain for Delta Airlines, and I flew heavy jet airliners in and out of Sky Harbor. And number 5, I worked for a season in Sky Harbor Tower with air traffic control, so I've seen it from all sides. The idea of putting a dense concentration of a large group of people on close final to one of the busiest runways in the world boggles the mind. There's no such thing as perfect safety. We try to get as close as we can and avoid unnecessary risk, and the word is unnecessary. But accidents will happen. In the last 25 years or so, records have been kept of aircraft total loss accidents where there was nothing wrong with the airplane and the crew did nothing wrong. There have been 27 crashes by wind shear alone. Everyone knows about the bird strike and the ditching in the Hudson, but there have been others that did not end so well. The climb profiles quoted by the developer and mentioned by the FAA are best case scenarios with single failure. If there's a multiple failure, like weather or wind or birds or any number of other things that add to the complication, then you could have a TED disaster. And then yes, Tempe would be in the national news. No fire department in the world could stop hundreds of people from burning to death if a plane full of jet fuel went into the TED. Sky Harbor has been lucky in recent years avoiding any major accidents, but a professional odds maker will tell you that can change in a heartbeat. In such cases, the injured and the grieving relatives are prone to see those responsible and sue them. The city of Tempe would be included. What would a couple hundred awards of $1 million do to the city treasury? You cannot say now that you did not know, because now you do. And for questions, the clerk has this paper with my information on it. And I sincerely hope I don't have to come back and say, I told you so.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next speaker is Darcy Marwick. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Woods, Council. I am Darcy Marwick, and I'm your neighbor in Phoenix. I'm coming here today to help you, neighbor, Phoenix. The Arizona Coyotes and some of the city council have been accusing Phoenix of being jealous of Tempe and wanting your city to fail, and because we don't want you to have this development in the hockey arena. It's quite the contrary. We want you to succeed. That's why we want you to say no. We want to help you say no. If I may, I want to introduce you to Mr. Murillo. If I can turn and ask him questions. I have tough questions for you, Mr. Murillo.
Excuse me, we cannot ask any questions. You just have to address us, so.
Here are the questions I would ask. How much debt do you still have on the Grand Sierra Resort and the Sahara? Were you involved in your brother Richard's owning of the DeVille Hotel in Miami Beach? And does your mother or brother have any involvement in the Murillo Group or Coyotes? And you want to know why I'm asking this? Earlier, right before this meeting, we had a little conversation with Mr. Murillo. And guess what? He lied. His brother, he is related to Richard Murillo, 2 years younger than him, and he was involved in the abandoning and letting the historic DeVille Hotel go to pot, and then just a month ago, it was imploded. And he had the nerve to lie to us. If he lies to us, he's going to lie to you. Earlier, you also talked about finances. I remember the staff talked about that he got an F rating on finances. Tempe has many problems, including crime, police relations with the community, and affordable housing, in which you, Mayor Woods, has campaigned on. Development is not a problem, but this project will certainly make it worse. Ask Glendale. By the way, Glendale, since they got rid of and let them go packing, Glendale is now a AAA bond rating. I see the Murillo Group and the Coyotes using the same snake oil sales pitch they've been doing since bankruptcy in 2009. It's just a different city. Don't be their next victim to empty promises, their vague sales pitches. Put your foot down and say no more. And I have an article for you about his relationship with the DeVoe Hotel and his brother Richard. He's a liar.
Thank you so much. The next speaker we have is Andrew Marwick. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, Andrew Marwick, Great Phoenix resident. This project is seeming to be less and less about a hockey arena every time the subject comes up. First, there was a discussion of a mixed-use development. Then it was 1,600 apartment units. Tonight we find out it's going to be 2,100 apartment units and 500 hotel rooms. It's 2,600 housing units on a little over 36 acres or whatever, 31 acres or whatever it is. That's about 100 units per acre. It's extremely dense. This will only make the traffic and parking problems in Tempe much worse. There's a lot of traffic right now, Mill Avenue, Rio Salado, etc. Westgate covers hundreds of acres. They have they have 3 accesses directly onto the 101 out of there. Who will pay for extending the streetcar? Even if MAG money or federal money is available for extending the streetcar, that could very well take away from transportation projects elsewhere in Tempe. Does the streetcar and light rail have sufficient capacity to move this many people out of the arena area? It's over a mile to either of the nearby light rail stations, and those don't have that much capacity. If you look at the DART station next to the American Airlines Center in Dallas, they have 2 light rail lines and a commuter rail line heading out of there right next door. Tempe does not have that type of capacity. There's a 4,000 parking space deficit on the site. And do they have an agreement with the surrounding building, with the IDEA or any of the other office buildings in the area? They show the development across the Salt River, and you can't go across the Salt River bed. You'd have to go all the way around on Priest and come back. That's not a 5-minute walk over to the office buildings on the north side of the Salt River. There's another issue, and that's spot zoning. As you move away from where we are now in Mill Avenue, the density generally declines. They're talking about urban core, which means right here, right in the middle of Tempe. This is 1.5 miles away from here. This is a spot zoning. The area around here has a much lower density around them. It's all commercial. The nearest residential apartment units that have been approved or are in the process of being approved are east of Hardy, basically a half mile east of where they are now. Another issue is Sky Harbor Airport. I checked last night between midnight and 1:30 a.m., 20 flights took off, heading east over where this development would be. What happens at 5 o'clock in the morning? Southwest starts sending about a dozen flights out, quickly followed by American and other airlines. They get a 3.5-hour break from airplane noise in the middle of the night. 1:30 to 5 o'clock is not a good sleeping length of time. And there's a multitude of other reasons why this project doesn't work. I can't get to them all in 3 minutes isn't even close. This would be, I think, a problem and a big risk for the city of Tempe, and the benefits would fall mostly to the coyotes. And not as much to coyotes, but to Bluebird Development and these ultra-luxury. Affordable housing is another big issue, too. You'd have the employees, they talk about 7,000 employees, they would be competing with existing employees and ASU students for the scarce affordable housing in Tempe, and just drive up Tempe to be even more unaffordable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next speaker is Phil Amorosi. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the council. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Phil Amorosi, 1432 East Cedar Street in Tempe. I'm not anti-hockey. I worked for the Philadelphia Flyers during their heyday when they were the Broad Street Bullies. I touched the Stanley Cup a couple of times. I love hockey. And I like new housing, and I like new restaurants, and even new hotels. But I don't want you to give away 15 acres to a site that's going to be built as the 3rd 15,000-seat arena in the valley. No other major city has that many arenas. Few have even 2. And let's not forget the amphitheaters and the football stadiums that also compete for concert business. This land is valuable despite them playing it down as a brownfield site. You don't see San Antonio building a stadium next to its Riverwalk. Why? Because it's the Riverwalk that's the draw, not an arena. Boulder, Colorado, another college town that we always like to compare ourselves to. You don't see the Colorado Avalanche in Boulder. They have their own unique charm. And I thought that's how Tempe was supposed to be. We always have to promote ourselves as a college town with a world-class university. So that should be your identity, not some hockey team that hops around from town to town more like a jackrabbit than a coyote. Let's instead take advantage and make this location a mixed-use site that attracts a lot of higher wages. And we don't need a 30-year giblet to do that. We don't need to create a community facilities district that sucks out an extra 6.5% in sales, bed, and property taxes from Tempe and goes to the developer. Instead, it'll all go to Tempe. Once you commit to an arena, that's it until 2055. 30 years. Think about what Tempe was like in 1995. Do we really want to commit that 15 acres to a part-time use instead of a company that can create better paying jobs? Most of the jobs in an arena are part-time, low-wage jobs. I also want to talk about the traffic. This arena is woefully underparked. They say they're going to provide 9,600 spaces, but a third of that is off-site. The city itself says they need 10,600 spaces. So why are we going to shoulder other businesses around the lake with their parking? They should be responsible for all their parking on site. And that's what we usually did when I was on the DRC. You had to make sure that the people had enough parking on site. I also wanted to mention that I don't see why this owner doesn't use all this money to invest in his own hockey team, which is at the bottom of the standings and is in the bottom of the value of all hockey teams out of 32 teams. Instead, he wants to grab the second most valuable site in Arizona. I say, don't even put it to a public vote for this part-time use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambrose. Appreciate it. Quick question actually to the clerk. I got a note here. Did you get a comment card from Justine Yates?
I don't think we have anything that was received by 2 p.m., but we're going to double check.
She was just saying to me, she submitted it at 1:30 p.m., she was saying, but I don't have it in here, so.
Did she submit it possibly for read only?
Possibly.
Because there is an option for council to read prior to the meeting, but we're going to double check that folder as well.
Okay, sounds good. I've got a few more speakers before her, so I'll just go to them first. But
okay.
Just wanted to alert you. Okay, the next speaker I have this evening is Tim Palmer. Please come forward. Mr. Mayor. You'll pass? Okay, thank you so much, sir. The next speaker I have is Lindsay Fry. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
All right. Hello, council members, and thank you for allowing me to speak before you again. My name is Lindsay Fry. I reside in Phoenix. I spoke before many of you over the summer about my journey with the Coyotes and with hockey in Arizona. Today, I want to talk more about the impact both have had for so many others in our community in the past and present, as well as what it can do right here in Tempe in the future. As a reminder, I grew up down the street in Chandler, and through the support of the hockey community led by the Arizona Coyotes, I was able to play Division I hockey at Harvard and become Arizona's first Olympic ice hockey player and Winter Olympic medalist. I've now been a part of the Arizona Coyotes organization for 6 years. I've served in a business leadership role. I've been on the road with the team in a broadcasting role, and I've overseen youth and girls hockey community efforts. I know how passionate our front office staff is and how hard they work to ensure that we succeed. I see firsthand night after night how much our players fight for each other to prove people wrong on the ice and how much they care about this community. And I especially see the lives of our community's youth change through this sport with the help of this organization. So what drives us to fight the uphill battle both on and off the ice that we're in today? It's the same reason I started playing 25 years ago. This game is special. It's different than anything else in the world. It's fast, it's tough, it's passionate, it's fun. It's putting the team before yourself. It's getting knocked down and getting back up over and over, because through the game, a belief in oneself develops beyond what was ever thought possible. And those lessons translate across age and gender and background, and I have the pleasure of seeing that in our community on a daily basis. I've seen children afraid to leave their parents' side because they recently found out they had type 1 diabetes go on to flourish on the ice with laughter and joy. I've seen kids adopted out of abusive homes who have tried every other sport and only found confidence and safety in hockey. I've seen this community rally around families who have gone through unimaginable tragedies. We may be a small sports community here in the desert, but if you talk to any hockey family in Arizona, you'll quickly find out that that's why they love it. Because it's about something bigger than yourself, because it requires sacrifice both on and off the ice, because you know that the hockey community will always have your back. Imagine what will happen when we can scale that impact beyond anything this state has ever seen before right here in Tempe. I see the truth of ASU's consistent marketing verbiage, innovation in the demographics of this city, the buildings that have risen since my time as a student here, and the global impact that research and business taking place in Tempe continues to have. Ice in the desert, a community that celebrates being different, a game that has never just been about the game, a new way of connecting with the Valley of the Sun, right here in Tempe. With a permanent home, we can and will continue to show our community that being different is a gift to be celebrated and, more importantly, supported. But innovation doesn't exist without action and implementation, and that's where you all come in. And I'm so excited to see what we can do together. Please continue to say yes to this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next speaker I have is May Rugg. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Mayor, council people, my name is May Rugg. I currently live in Marabella, one of your favorite places of residence. I've lived in Tempe for 55 years. We've raised our family here. I've been active in the community. I will remain active. I would like to ask you to really consider deeply about this project. I like the idea of growth. I like the idea of progress. I like to, my advanced age teaches me to watch out for the unexpected, and this project has unexpected written all over it. It feels oily. It feels a little bit like what Glendale might have felt like. So I would like for you to consider that for no other reason than that. Other things have been brought up tonight that have been well discussed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. The next card I have is from Philip Yates. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For the record, my name is Philip Yates, and I'm the president for the Riverside Neighborhood Association. There have been a lot of concerns from our neighbors and to the general public about why this would be a bad thing for this area. This is right next to the airport, and we already have a lot of problems with traffic in our neighborhoods and on our streets. The streets will have to be modified. They're going to have to be, excuse me, some kinds of modifications with regard to street calming, speed humps, or other ways to slow down our traffic. The neighborhood traffic during the actual 270 plus times that there are going to be events at this place are going to be terrible. They showed us earlier some pictures of what it would look like. They'd have to close off our streets and everything in order to have a entertainment that evening. But there would have to be new fire station for the area because the one that we have isn't close enough to do it. They'd have to just drive way too far in order to handle any kind of a problem that may come up at the time of an event. We haven't ever really had any sound testing done for our area. We have back in 1993, ironically, the city of Tempe sued the FAA for $100 million. And we said okay to that, but I mean, they said okay to that, but we'll go down to $30 million. And that's what they gave us. That was when my grandfather lived at the house that I live in now. But anyhow, we had $30 million to soundproof our houses, and we had access to do that. But this time around, we haven't even had any kind of sound evaluations of the area and the houses that are in that general vicinity that are right next to the airport. Going to and from the airport itself is going to be a nightmare. I don't know how many times people have actually driven to and from the airport during rush hour or just during rush hour for whatever reason. It's already terrible. People going to and coming out of Sky Harbor International are going to have a very, very hard time getting to Tempe or leaving Tempe. So that is really going to be an issue, and I think that we definitely need to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yates. Appreciate it. I was able to, got the comment texted to me from Justine Yates, so I'll quickly read that one into the record, and I'll see if anyone else in the audience wishes to speak. So this one is from Justine Yates, a resident of Tempe, Arizona. First off, I would like to say that many people are disappointed that council scheduled this meeting during a holiday week and also not on a regular city council meeting date. And this is to the advantage of the developer and not to the community. Many people that may have commented are gone to the meeting will not be in attendance. The developer will state that if people were opposed to the project, why did they not attend? If the city would look through all of the neighborhood social media accounts, they could see how many people were actually opposed to the project. Not one single post stating that it would be a good thing for our community. I am a Tempe native and have also lived in downtown for the last 23 years. I've also been a community organizer and activist for the entire duration. There are many things to like about living in our downtown region. I cannot think of one single benefit the Coyotes project will have for our community. Many people are already disenfranchised with the changes that have occurred in the downtown and have chosen to not live here or not to visit any longer. Rent increases, mom and pop businesses, and traffic have pushed away so many of our friends and community members. Tempe used to be one of the cities that actually had an actual identity. Allowing the Coyote Stadium will be the final nail in our coffin. Our roads and neighborhoods will be gridlock, and many, many more people will be priced out of the community. More existing homes will be turned into Airbnbs. It will take twice as long to get to the airport and the freeway. We are also supporting a developer and team that have a terrible credit rating, ranked last in the Central Division. Why would the city want to support this? My last questions, I would like actual answers from the developer since we are neighborhood representatives. I would like to know what they actually have to offer the people that live in the neighborhoods surrounding the Coyotes and how this will actually improve our quality of life. They need to be specific. 1, will they be offering more traffic mitigation on First Street? 2, will they repave roads? 3, how many of the units will be affordable or workforce housing? Please give pricing for the units. 4, what are the salary and hourly rates of their employees? 5, will they make a large donation to help the homeless population that was displaced because of this project? City Council, I know that not a single one of you actually live north of Broadway Road. Please consider the current residents that live here. Okay, and that's the end of the statement. So, yeah. So I do live north of Broadway Road. I live at 5th and Maple, so. But that's not, I get that, so no worries. Thank you, Ms. Yates, appreciate it if you're watching at home, so. Let's see here. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council on this item? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none. Is it? Yes, sir? Yes? Yes, come on up here. Yes, please come down, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Hi, my name is Will Graves. I live at 523 South Albert Ave, which is 5th Street and Priest, roughly a mile from where this is being developed. I didn't plan on speaking today. I just learned about this afternoon. I want to say that I've lived in that neighborhood for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years next year, so 19 years. I jog every weekend from 5th and Priest at my house along Rio Salado to Tempe Town Lake. I've always been surprised that I'm jogging along a dump that then opens up to such a beautiful lake. And I've heard a lot of the comments today criticizing this. And for me, and talking about what it'd be like for the neighbors of this development, and I want to say that I'm in complete support of this. I haven't been deterred by the negative aspects that I've heard. I think that being a resident, a neighbor of this will improve the neighborhood, will improve my neighborhood. And I heard that planes could crash there, but I feel like planes could crash in much of the areas surrounding the airport. I tolerate and don't mind the noise from the airplanes that fly directly over my house. And I think that I don't have soundproof walls, which a lot of these residents will have. So I just wanted to come up and voice my support for this project.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All right, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council? Please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I'm going to move on here to item 2B, which is another public hearing item, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a development and disposition agreement with Bluebird Development LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, for the project known as the Tempe Entertainment District, located at the northeast corner of Priest Drive and Rio Salado Parkway in Tempe, that also establishes policy regarding referenda involving professional sports franchises. And with that, I'm going to turn to the President and CEO of the Arizona Coyotes, Mr. Javier Gutierrez.
Perfect. Mayor Woods, council members, Javier Gutierrez, President and CEO of the Arizona Coyotes, live in Paradise Valley, Arizona. I apologize, I do have my belt, but I have lost my voice. So in advance, I hope I don't lose it in the middle of this presentation. First and foremost, we are very excited to be here, and we are truly grateful for this opportunity to yet again present what we believe is a transformative and iconic development for the city of Tempe. I want to thank you all first for all your diligence, for all your attention to this truly important matter. I'd also like to recognize your staff. They are incredible. They have worked so hard throughout this entire process. The residents of Tempe should truly be grateful for this wonderful staff because they have the best interests of this community in mind. Before I get into the specifics of this project and the deal and the benefits, I'd like to address one key question. Why exactly are we here tonight? Because this isn't just about hockey. This isn't just about sports. This is about something that you actually heard Lindsay Fry talk about a little bit while ago. It is about impact. It is about the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of others, and specifically to make a difference in this community, our community, a community in which we as an organization are already a part of. I bring up impact because that mission defines Alex Morello and his family. It was stated earlier that many people have heard of Alex and his family, but they don't necessarily know him. Alex Morello is the son of Cuban immigrants. He started his first business, which was a tuxedo rental shop targeting the Latino immigrant families of Los Angeles when he was barely a teenager. He is a self-made entrepreneur who has been in business for over 40 years, through ups and downs and multiple economic cycles, and yet has never had one business in bankruptcy, and in fact has secured financing from some of the leading banks and financial services companies in the world. The business he has built, the Morello Group, is not some faceless, nameless corporation. It's a family-owned and family-run business. It includes the largest Latino-owned bank in California, one of the largest union infrastructure construction subcontractors in the West Coast, and one of the largest English and Spanish language media businesses in the US. And yes, we are very proud to say that the Morello Group is one of the most successful minority business enterprises in the country. And in 2019, Alex Morello and his family, his wife Lisette, his children Alexis, Alexander, and Lizette, fulfilled a lifelong dream to own a sports franchise, and along the way becoming the first Latino owners in the history of the National Hockey League. But all along, the mission for Alex and his family has been the same. How do we leverage our platform to make a difference in other people's lives? And they have chosen this community for that impact. When Alex reached out to me to be a part of what he was building, it was this mission of impact that resonated and moved me to join him on his journey. I've had a chance to share my personal story with many of you as we've gotten to know each other. As you all know, I'm an immigrant to this country from Mexico, and I've been blessed to live the American dream due to the hard work and sacrifice of my parents. And I have been on a lifelong journey to help others live their American dream. And so here I came, moving my family, my wife, Jerica, my son, Javi, to really fulfill and be a part of this mission of impact, and specifically now to make an impact in this community of Tempe. But this isn't about nice words. This is about actions. This is about making impact a reality. We are very proud at the Arizona Coyotes of the impact that we have made as an organization. We're proud to have the largest female front office in the NHL. We're proud to have started the first diverse coaches internship program in the NHL. We're very proud to have the first and only Native American gaming enterprise on our jersey. We're very proud to have one of the leading social impact enterprises in Arizona, Goodwill, on our helmet. And yes, we are very proud to be a Tempe business today. As a result of Alex Morello's financial commitment of over $30 million for a temporary solution, we are here in Tempe already. We have built one of the most exciting and electric environments in all of the NHL at Mullet Arena, right down the street from here on the campus of ASU. And I want to publicly thank, yet again, ASU for their great partnership, for allowing us to be on their campus while we work to stay in Tempe permanently. And according to the Tempe Chamber, we are very proud to be the largest minority business enterprise in Tempe today. And so as much as we will ask you to respectfully request and approve this proposed project that we'll be presenting again tonight, what we're really here to ask you is for the opportunity to continue on our mission to make an impact, to turn a landfill into a landmark, to bring almost 7,000 permanent jobs per our market study to Tempe, to bring over $400 million in net new taxes to the city of Tempe, to create a $2.1 billion sports and entertainment district that will be the main of the entire state of Arizona, to be the first and only privately financed sports facility in the history of Arizona, to fulfill the vision of Rio Salado that led to the creation of Tempe Town Lake, and that Tempe leaders have had for many years for this specific site. We ask you to allow us to make the impact a reality with a transformative project that belonged right here in our community. And with that, I would like to start to talk about the project and to talk about the deal and talk about the economic and community benefits, and then be able to show you the vision of the Tempe Entertainment District. I won't repeat some of the comments that were already made by Nick Wood, but as you see, this is the site today. 46 acres along Priest and Rio Salado, a contaminated landfill. This is what we envision. And one thing that you'll hear from Nick Wood is everything you see here will be privately developed and financed by us. Everything there. So let's talk about the summary of the project. And I always start by pointing out that the city's third-party market feasibility report noted that this development that we are proposing would be the site's highest and best use. It's a $2.1 billion project, which would be one of the largest property developments in Arizona's history, and definitely the largest in Tempe's history. It would be an opportunity to turn this landfill to a landmark and remove 1.5 million tons of trash, approximately $75 million in cost. It would be the home of the Arizona Coyotes and a world-class entertainment venue of approximately 16,000 seats. It would also include our practice facility, a community amenity that would be open to the public and that would serve as the headquarters of our youth hockey program, which you again heard from Lindsay Fry is so important to this community. We'll also include a restaurant row and a retail center. We envision a paseo along the spine of this entire site that would be housing, fine dining, and boutique shopping. It would include 2 hotels, a boutique 200-key hotel, a convention-style 300-key hotel. As you all know very well, Tempe is under-hoteled. This is an incredibly popular community, and adding more hotels will absolutely benefit this community and its businesses. Also include a private medical office campus, and you all know that you have in your possession a letter of interest from a major Arizona-based medical company that is seeking to move their headquarters into that site and bring 3,000 permanent jobs. We also are proposing a little bit under 2,000 residential units. Our vision from day one is that this is a live, work, play community that would be available 24/7, 365 days a year. And finally, it would include a 3,500 person theater, a flexible space for smaller shows, and accretive to the offerings that are currently available in the city of Tempe. I won't point out this site plan that Nick Wood had already pointed out. The only thing I will say is, again, phase 1 would be the easternmost phase, and it would include the arena, the practice facility, the hotel. But please note, because they came up in many of our conversations with the community, we are committed to this entire site. We are committed to the entire project. It financially does not work unless we build the entire project. So now let's get into the deal. And while this may seem to be a very complicated deal, we really are asking 4 major requests of the city. The first is, sell us the 46 acres of contaminated land, which always gets pointed out to me, actually caught on fire over the summer, okay? We're seeking to buy it at a market rate of $25 a square foot, and you've heard on multiple occasions they'd be willing to put a $40 million non-refundable deposit upon the effectiveness of the DDA. Request number 2 is we're asking the city to create a community facilities district, a structure that has been previously used by this city and that you are all very familiar with. Request number 3, contribute a portion of the new on-site city taxes that are going to be created by all of the private real estate that we will be building. And the reason we are asking for that is not to go into our pocket, not to enrich us, but in order to supplement our putting our collateral of our land and our real estate and our developer user charge that we will be charging people who come onto our site in order to clean up that land. It is a scheme that we have put together in our negotiations with the city staff in order to be able to successfully address the contamination that we will be building upon. The fourth request would be to authorize the creation of a GPLIT with property tax abatements, and they'd be two types. The first would be a 30-year GPLIT for the arena, the practice facility, and the theater for 30 years. By comparison, and you will hear, every other sports and entertainment facility in Arizona has property tax abatements in perpetuity. They never pay property taxes. We are seeking a 30-year abatement for, again, the arena, the theater, and the practice facility. We are also asking for an 8-year GPLIT for the other uses, which is exactly the amount that you all have approved for other development projects along Tempe Town Lake. I will invite Nick Wood to come up and say words about the project.
Sorry. Mayor, members of the council, another one of my father's guiding principles. Everything that you do matters. And although the mayor's not here, neither is the vice mayor, I'll ask permission if I could tell you the background and the basis for the story behind that guiding principle. I'll take you back to the last week of April in 1968. I was a junior at Notre Dame High School in Milwaukee. And we'd had a very long winter, we had no spring, and it was a kind of a Ferris Bueller type of week. So I decided I was going to skip school. Now, I was not as creative as Ferris Bueller to try to fake being sick. I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to skip school. And I had a plan, which I will not discuss, but I had a plan, so I skipped school. Of course, I had nuns as my teachers. And get into probably about the second hour, right, the nuns then reported to the principal that Nick Wood was not in class. So, of course, the principal's office called my mother. My mother answered. They say, is Nick sick? And they go, no, he went to school today. Well, he's not here. Well, hopefully he didn't meet an untimely death on his way to school. My mother said, well, if he didn't, he's going to meet one when he gets home. True story. So, of course, I come home about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and my mom and dad are there waiting, and they're not happy. So, of course, I told my dad, I said, before you say anything, I said, remember one of your other guiding principles. The first casualty of emotion is reason. That didn't help me. So my dad said, where were you? Now, I know he knows I wasn't at school. Obviously, we wouldn't be having this conversation. My concern is that he finds out what I really did. Because although I'm going to get punished for not going to school, if he found out what I was doing, the punishment would be considerably worse. So I decided to, take the offensive. And I said, well, I skipped school. And I did it because, look, it's been a long winter. And I said, it really doesn't matter. Because, I'm top in my class. School is done in 3 weeks. So it really doesn't matter. So he looked at me as if he was talking to a young child or a golden retriever, and he said, son, everything that you do matters because it affects everyone. He said, it affects your mom and me. We were worried about you. No way to reach you, know where you are. The nuns were concerned about where you were, but it also affects people's opinion of you. You did something irresponsible. And as a result, everyone's opinion is, how can we trust you to be responsible in the future? So, because of that, I can't trust you to be responsible with our family car for the next 2 months. And that was my punishment. The question is, was it worth it? Yeah. But the importance of that story really is what we all do does matter. And that's always been my approach as an attorney, whether it's as a zoning and land use attorney or as a tax attorney, putting these kind of deals together. And the reason is it affects my client clearly, but also affects you. My job, right, is to create a structure and a deal that makes it easy for you to make a decision to support it. Because what you do matters, because the residents of the city of Tempe trust you to make the right decision. And that's even though this is going to end up going to the voters and we're going to take it there, right? They look to you for leadership. So what I do matters because I'm trying to make it work for you. I've been the organization's attorney since 2013. They've gone through 3 ownership changes. For some inane reason, they continue to use me. But I did their deal in 2013 with Glendale. I did it again in 2015 and actually improved it. And when I sat down with Mr. Gutierrez and Mr. Morello to look at this project, let's see here. We looked at this aerial. And what Mr. Morello said is, look, the city's going to do an RFP. We're going to offer the fair market value for the land at $25 a square foot. However, as you can see, this land is not shovel ready. There's a lot of challenges to the property. He said, and before I begin, he said, I want you to know that this is what I want to build, and it's all going to be with private money. Rule number 1, do not ask the city of Tempe for any cash. This is all private. I don't want any cash, and you do not ask for it. Rule number two, do not violate or break rule number 1. Rule number 3, do not create any risk for Tempe taxpayers. Under no circumstances are we going to create risk. So he said, in order to make this shovel ready, we have a problem. For example, it contains, because they did borings and other studies before the RFP went out, it contains 1.5 million tons of contaminated soil. The cost of that alone is anywhere from $73 million and up. We really don't know what's there totally. We do know that there's a lot of inert matter there. There's some organic matter there, but who knows what we're going to find in 46 acres. Secondly, it was such a large landfill, essentially, that it goes down almost 40 feet deep. So think about that. That's like a 4-story building covering 46 acres, and it's all basically contaminated. So it has to be removed, it has to be cleaned, new dirt has to go in, it's expensive. But that's not the only cost. The other cost is with that levee. I think if I go back, there's a great picture of the levee. No, I guess not. Okay, the levee is, you can't see it very well here, but the levee is huge. Okay, it's basically more than 3 stories tall. And it extends way beyond, certainly, the boundaries of this property. The underlying contaminated soil actually goes all the way up to the edge of that levee. And as a result, we have to shore up that levee as we're doing the work. That is not cheap. When you think of it, you're trying to shore up a 3-story building or taller all the way down. Because that thing, of course, was there by the Corps of Engineers and to protect erosion and other things. If you've ever been out there, I'm sure you have, there's 69 kV lines that run through it, APS lines. We have a 40-inch sewer line that runs through it. All told, there is so much work that has to be done here to make it shovel ready. And again, all of it is what we call public infrastructure. This site belongs to the city of Tempe. Legally, the city of Tempe is responsible for cleaning it. I mean, that's the way it is. That's why we won't buy any of it before it's cleaned, because whoever owns it under CERCLA, which is the federal laws, and the state laws say that you own it, you clean it. It's your responsibility. So we took a look at what it's going to cost to do all the things in order to make this thing shovel ready, right? All things that really are part of cleaning it to make it shovel ready and make it saleable. That number came in at between $210 and $230 million. Now, Mr. Morello said, your task, Nick, is to figure out where that money is going to come from. Because remember, we're not going to ask the city for any money, right? No cash. Not for us, but also for this. Clearly, you don't have $210 million lying around, and even if you did, it would be ridiculous for you to write a check to clean this all up. So we need to figure out a way how to pay for that. So I said, well, I've got some ideas. Number one, we could use a bonding structure, right? And there's two types that we use through projects all over the state of Arizona. One is an improvement district. Improvement district allows for the city to create the district. The district sells bonds, right? And then, of course, there's a revenue source, and I'll talk about that in a minute, that's used to pay the bonds. The problem with improvement districts is twofold. There's a good side, and that is the cost of the financing, what we call the pricing, is really low. It's like 3%. The reason is that the city's full faith and credit stands behind it. It becomes a contingent liability on your balance sheet. And again, the idea is we're not asking you for money either personally or for this project. So we took the improvement district and set it aside. I said the way we should do this is with a community facilities district. Community facilities district, again, the city forms the district. The district then, right, sells bonds, and those bonds are used basically to do that $210 to $230 million worth of improvement. So the next question is, where's the source of payments for the bonds? Because we're looking at a 30-year term on those bonds. So one source, of course, is what we generate on site. Now, as we build the arena, as we build the practice facility, as we build all the retail, as we build the hotels, the Class A office, all the residential, all the things we're going to build will generate transaction privilege tax, sales tax. Now, the city of Tempe charges 1.8% sales tax. So if someone buys a ticket to go to a game, right, at ASU right now, out of $100 they spend, $1.80, right, come to the city of Tempe in the form of sales tax. Now, that sales tax, right, has two components. 0.6 of it, you've already committed to other bond deals, other obligations that the city has. So you take that and you pay off a credit card or another obligation. Then basically you have 1.2% that's not committed to anything else. That basically goes into your treasury. So my suggestion was that we ask the city of Tempe basically to use 0.9%, which is half of it, right? And have that be applied to pay the bonds. The other thing is bed tax. City of Tempe charges a 5% bed tax. So if someone stays at our hotel or any hotel in the city of Tempe, they pay a bed tax. So maybe we ask the city to put up 75% of the bed tax to be used to pay the bonds. And then, of course, there's going to be property tax. And the property tax, right, some of it's committed, but basically 62% of it, we would ask that the city, again, use that property tax to help pay the bonds. And then we did the calculations. Okay, over 30 years with this thing being built out in phases, how much money will that generate? Okay, it'll generate about $210 million to $230 million. The problem is that's just the principal for the bonds. You have to pay interest on the bonds, and because these are not backed by the city has no liability. It's what we call non-recourse. If the bonds aren't paid, City of Tempe is not responsible to pay anything, right? So the interest rate is higher. The interest rate will be about 6%. So if you add in the interest over 30 years, and you're going to amortize that loan like you amortize your home loan, we're talking about $450 million to $470 million over 30 years. Well, we know by using your portion of the TPT and the property tax and the bed tax, that'll pay for less than half of it. So where does the other half come from? So I talked to Mr. Morello, and my suggestion was that we charge what's called a surcharge. A surcharge is the equivalent of taxing ourselves, right? So let's say we tax ourselves anywhere from 1% to 6%. That money would be on top of the sales tax, the transaction privilege tax. So essentially, if someone buys a ticket, right, they'll pay the city of Tempe's 1.8%, and in addition to that, they'll pay another 2% up to 6%. That money would then be used to pay the bonds. So in talking to Mr. Morello, he said, let me get this straight, okay? This is Tempe land, it's contaminated. Tempe will end up paying less than 50% of it, and I'm going to pay the other 50+%. I said, yes. He goes, is that it? I said, no. If you are an underwriter right, and a trustee, and you're selling these bonds. A bond buyer wants more than just a predictable source of revenue, right? One that you can actually rely upon. They want collateral security. When you go in your home and you borrow money to buy a home, right, your bank will have you sign a promissory note, and you owe the money. You put some equity in, but you owe the money, and then they put a deed of trust on your property. It's collateral security. So it's the same thing here. The bond buyer says, okay, we're going to have this income stream, right? It's going to come from the city of Tempe on one hand, the rest of it's going to come from the developer on the other, but what's my collateral security? So basically, these bonds will be what's called assessment bonds. The assessment bonds basically create a super priority lien on all of the privately owned land and improvements. So there'll be $2.1 billion worth of land and improvements securing, guaranteeing those debt service payments, that revenue payments. So Mr. Morello looks at me like maybe I'm really Tempe's lawyer and not his lawyer. He said, let me get this straight. It's Tempe's land. I need it shovel ready. It's going to cost basically $450 to $470 million. Tempe's going to contribute money that I'm going to generate on site, but obviously it's going to come from Tempe. It's going to pay a little bit less than half. And I'm going to pay more than half. And then I'm going to put up collateral security to not only secure my half of that, but I'm going to secure the city's half of that. And I said, yes. And the best thing about the assessment lien is, when I say super priority, it's like a property tax. If any of you on your homes don't pay your property tax and you have a lender, the county can foreclose, right? Or whoever buys the tax certificate can foreclose on your home. You get foreclosed out, but so does your lender. The lender is subordinate to that. Same thing here. The assessment lien has priority. So now, again, Mr. Morello is paying for more than half of the remediation out of his own pocket, and he's also putting up collateral security to basically create an assessment lien that covers your half as well as our half. And of course, he says, is that it? I go, no. I said, we have another issue. And that is, in order to create the assessment liens, it has to be privately owned. The city can't put an assessment lien on city-owned land. It has to be owned in private. That means that a certain amount of the remediation and other work has to be done before you buy the site that's underneath the arena, because the arena is going to be the first one. So where does that money come from? Okay, rule number one, don't ask the city of Tempe for any money. So I said, you're going to have to put up $40 million as part of your purchase price. Now, $25 a square foot, his purchase price basically is $50 million. So he's going to put up $40 million of that, right, as non-refundable earnest money. He's not going to own anything. He's not going to have an interest in anything. He's committed to do all the things I just described to you, including pay more than half of all the costs of remediation and provide security for yours and his. But that $40 million will then be used to remediate the first phase, and that first phase is the arena itself. Once that is done, then he will actually acquire fee title to that. And at that point, once he acquires fee title, now they can start selling bonds, and the assessment happens, and the whole thing begins to unfold. But again, he's putting up all that money, all that responsibility. So he looks at me again and says, all right, is that it? I said, no. So I said, you are going to be part of the community, and you're going to have to make contributions to that community, because you're going to be the biggest project in that community, private development in that community ever. So we took, basically, this is what I just described to you. He's going to give you $50 million to buy your land. By the way, there's going to be construction permit fees. He's going to pay $10 million. Then he's going to make these payments, $240 million. He's going to cover as the other half of the payments for the CFD. So basically, he's going to be all in at $300,400,000. That's like paying you $150 per square foot for the land that's only worth $25 a square foot. And again, he asked me, is that all? I said, no. So we go this. Additional contributions to the city of Tempe. Naming rights. Okay, you heard someone say about how this, Tempe has a brand. and your brand is important. And having your brand become something that is national and international is important for the long-term future and sustainability of the city of Tempe. So, although we will have an arena that will have a name of a sponsor on it, right, the actual sports and entertainment district will be named Tempe. So maybe Tempe Live, Tempe Go, whatever you decide or we decide together that was what's going to be on there, Tempe now will be used all the time. Center ice. Tempe, Arizona will be on center ice. So every game, right, that's televised, and they're all televised, whether it's local, national, international, people are going to see that. And there'll be other naming opportunities throughout. That's about $130 million worth of naming rights that he could otherwise sell to third parties, but again, he's going to contribute that. Facility usage, right? The city's going to be able to have free use of the arena itself 3 days a year. So you can do whatever you want. You want to have conventions, you want, whatever you want to do, you can. Same thing with the entertainment venue. The entertainment venue, you can basically use 5 times a year. We have the plaza and some covered areas that Tempe can use 10 times a year. And then we're going to give you a suite, okay? The suite will be given to the city, no charge. Basically, suites are anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 a year. You'll have it for 30 years. And essentially, you also get the tickets that go with it for free. The only thing you have to do is buy your own food and booze. Public safety contributions. You heard someone say today, wow, boy, public safety is a big issue. We're going to make a contribution to the city, $1.1 million each year for 30 years, that you can use however you want for public safety purposes. Again, shoring up where you think it's needed. Light rail incentives, okay? We're going to work basically with light rail, with Valley Metro, on everything from ride sharing and some other things. So we're going to make that kind of contribution of $13 million over 30 years. Public shuttle. You heard Dawn talk about having shuttles going back and forth from each one of the train stations. ASU partnership. We're going to give ASU 3,000 square feet of free space. And it's an innovation-related type of use. They're going to have it for 30 years. Free space, basically it's worth $7 million of use that we could otherwise lease to somebody else. Free office space for the city of Tempe. 3,000 square foot office, it's yours for 30 years to use it as you deem appropriate. Public art. Under the zoning, we're required to do $2.5 million worth of public art. We're doing $7 million worth of public art. Airport traffic mitigation. You heard someone say that people try to cut through the airport when the freeways are packed. So we're going to contribute $200,000 a year for 30 years so that the city of Tempe can work with the city of Phoenix to create some mitigation to keep people from cutting through the airport. I tried that once. I wouldn't recommend it. But it's a concern that was stated by our friends at the city of Phoenix, so we're going to make that contribution. Workforce housing, $2 million contribution. Inclusive arena features. Again, for those who have challenges, sometimes a lot of noise, a lot of lights and other things make people very anxious, so there'll be areas where they can just go and relax and have it be quiet. But all of that adds up to $293 million. That's the equivalent of $145 a square foot that he's paying for the land. So if you add that, 145 to 150, he's basically paying $295 a square foot equivalent by, again, picking up all of the things I described, picking up more than half of the cost of all of the public infrastructure improvements, putting up all of his properties, collateral security for both his half and your half, and then making all of these contributions. So Mr. Morello turns to me and said, what's in it for me? I mean, great, I get to build a $2.1 billion project using all my own money, but what's in it for me? I said, well, now we can say that we can use a G-plit. So I'm going to talk about the G-plits. Basically, and you see what others do. The idea behind the G-plit is, since he's putting up all of that money, right? Basically, $480 million worth of money, essentially. What we're asking you to do is give him the G-plits. So under 426208, sub 4, that statutory provision was created to do exactly what Mr. Morello wants to do, use his own money to build an arena. That section specifically exempts from the limitations on the number of years and payments of excise tax, et cetera, arenas, stadiums, convention centers, things that cities, counties, and states usually pay for. I mean, you know, when you take a look at this list here, let's see here. For example, Footprint Arena in the city of Phoenix. That arena opened in 1992, okay? Basically 30 years ago. If you go into the city of Phoenix and you spend $1, part of that dollar is going to pay for that arena. They're still paying on it. Same thing with Desert Diamond Arena, which is the old arena that the Coyotes played in. You go spend any money in the city of Glendale, part of that is going to go to pay for that arena. So the idea behind the GPLIT for the 30 years is the arena components, the associated parking structure, the practice facility, and an entertainment venue will be subject to 30 years. Now, as you see here, all of the others are in perpetuity. We're only asking for 30 years. And then, of course, the others would be subject to 8 years. And basically what that does is that basically covers all of the additional money that Mr. Morello is paying. Because otherwise, why would he spend, right, almost $500 million on things that he can't quantify as a return on investment? He's paying for half of the remediation and all of the other things that go into, you know, making this thing shovel ready, again, which is City of Tempe land. And then he's going to fully guarantee all of it, his half, your half. And then he's going to make all of these other contributions right here for another $293 million. So this, of course, now balances those scales. And when I told you that what I do matters, I try and reach equity, fairness, okay? I don't like the idea someone wins all and someone else, right, doesn't. I want everyone to win. And I want that balance to be there. This does that. That's why I structured it this way. That's why our proposal includes it this way. So he doesn't put any money in his pocket, right? He helps solve a problem that you can't solve yourself. There's no way that this city could afford $210 million to clean up that site, and nobody else is going to write a check to clean it up for you. And no one else is going to create a project that generates a type of TPT in the amount that's necessary to pay it all off, right? Think about it. This is the largest private development in Tempe and one of the largest in the state. I shared with you earlier that you have 1.3 million square feet at Tempe Marketplace, 2 million square feet at State Farm. This is 4.3 million square feet. No other project will generate the revenue in TPT and otherwise to make this work. And no other developer is going to basically dig in his pocket for another $240 million to pay for it. And then put up a guarantee to make sure that your half and his half basically has collateral security. There's not another project. I hear other people, there's so many things we can do here. There's nothing else you can do here. This is the only project that'll ever make this work. I've known Israel Torres since he was a young snot-nosed lawyer out of law school, and he went to work for now Congressman Stanton as a staff member when he was a councilman in the city of Phoenix. He approached us, Israel did, because as you know, Israel represents many of the union trades. And he asked us if we would consider creating a certain percentage or guarantee of a certain amount of the subcontractor work, right, to union trades. And again, it has to be voluntary on our part. So we sat, obviously, with Hunt AECom, who's our general contractor, and we really took a long, hard look at what the costs are going to be, right? All of the subs that are going to be involved. And we've decided, right, to include in the DDA, so these are the two provisions in the DDA that contains it, where we are going to basically guarantee a minimum, okay, of 20%, and actually we're going to make it 25%. By dollar volume, of the contractors who do work on the arena and the practice facility will be awarded to firms falling within a collective bargaining agreement in Arizona. One of the reasons why Mr. Morello is willing to do that is you heard Javier said that he owns a company that's a union contractor. So he understands, right, how important unions are. And then, of course, we're adding a provision that says at least 20% by dollar volume, and it's going to be 25 now, by dollar volume of the subcontracts for work for public infrastructure, excluding excavation and remediation, again will be awarded to firms that are subject to a collective bargaining agreement, that are union, essentially. So I was very pleased with that because my dad, right, who I talk about a lot, he worked in a factory and he was a union member. So I grew up in a union home. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any members of council, any comments or questions?
And I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Gutierrez.
I have a few, but I'll wait till Mr. Gutierrez is done, then I'll ask my questions.
You keep seeing this visual, Mayor and council members, and it is a bit of, again, the impact that we have made since we have taken over. What I want to get into now is following up on the conversation that you had with Nick Wood to talk about the economic benefits. And this was a third-party study that we submitted that you all had as part of our response to the RFP done by CSL International, which does these types of market feasibility studies for projects like this worldwide. And what we submitted to you all, again, a direct spending total impact over 30 years of $13.1 billion. Jobs, full-time equivalent jobs of 6,900 jobs, 6,900. And what's important to note about those jobs and about this project in particular is that it is the variety of jobs. You're not just talking about lower wage or higher wage. That is what makes this project unique. You will have office, you will have retail, you will have service, you have various types of jobs. And then the earnings to the city, again, $10.5 billion. We feel very confident that the economic benefits of this project are overwhelming and quite compelling. We've already gone through the community benefits. I do want to point out one in particular, however, that is really, really important to us and that we have made a centerpiece of everything that we've talked about. And that is the ability to put Tempe, in terms of the brand of Tempe, on a global international stage. I sent around to several of you the video of us announcing our third overall pick in last year's NHL draft, which was held in Montreal. And the only time I got booed was when I mentioned the city of Tempe, because there are some Canadian fans that would like this team to be up in Canada. We have made it very clear we are fully committed to being here. We are proud to be here now, and we would be proud to be here on a permanent basis. We believe that this project would be incredible enhancement to the brand of the city of Tempe, internationally, locally, domestically. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to put this, but we are very proud of this video, which we have shown in public previously. But in order to sort of put a cap on everything, we'd like to show it again to show you the vision that we have had from day one about the Tempe Entertainment District. You can go ahead and... Mayor Woods, council members, I would like to add one comment because I want to acknowledge somebody in the audience because there have been some comments about our team's performance. I'd like to acknowledge our general manager, Bill Armstrong, and what I would like to say to you is that we are building the foundation of a sustained winner. This is part of a strategic plan to build this team through the draft. We will draft more players over the next 3 years than any other NHL team. We have the largest scouting department, the largest player development department. We have invested in building a sustained winner through youth. We have the second youngest team, and yet we have also been building a culture of competition that you can see every single night. This is about building a winner, and this is the path that we are going through. So I did want to acknowledge that because there were some comments on that. And even though it's not about hockey, we hope that you will come out and you can see that winner that we are building from the ground up.
You have questions?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Really appreciate it. I'll try to make these very quick. One of the first questions was you talked about some of the traffic mitigation. These are sort of neighborhood questions, about $200,000 annually to help with some of the issues that might occur because of the additional people who'd be coming into the entertainment district. Would some of those dollars be available potentially to use for like the Riverside Sunset neighborhood off of First Street to ensure that they don't have an increase in cut-through traffic through their neighborhoods as a result of this development?
Mayor, I personally would love to see that money stay here. I mean, look, like I said, I've tried going through the airport once to cut through. I don't know how many people do that. I would prefer, again, and it's really your discretion, to apply that $200,000 to Tempe streets and neighborhoods and other things. I don't think we have any issue with that. In fact, we frankly be better kept here.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add, Mayor and council members, is that we gave you the flexibility for the city to decide what would be best for that. So really, it's at your discretion.
Okay, sounds good. So it's up to us about how we would use that $200,000 a year if that's what happens. You've already talked about too that the up to 2,100 units you're proposing for the site are going to be market rate apartments. So none of those are going to be affordable or workforce, but you're contributing $2 million to the Tempe Coalition for Affordable Housing. That's correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Question that I was asked too are kind of, there was some talk from some of the residents about the difference between temporary jobs and kind of long-term, more permanent jobs. Do you have any numbers on kind of the salaries of the average employee or the hourly rates for the employees who'd be working here?
Absolutely, yes. We've gone back and done an analysis because that has been a question that's been asked. And by our analysis, and we're happy to share it with the city staff and with the city, we're actually looking at jobs that will average about $50,000 a year. And that median salary, we believe, per our analysis, is for the city of Tempe is actually $34,000. And so we see this as an opportunity to build real, strong, permanent jobs. And again, what we have been very excited about is that what this project does is it allows various types of uses. So you don't have just office, which would be primarily higher paying jobs and only at one sector, or only service jobs. This is a diversity of uses that really allows this community an opportunity to benefit all members of the community to benefit from this development and really be something that families would be able to be very benefited by.
Sounds good. Two more very quick questions. One was going to be, I know we've got the Omni Hotel opening up in April of 2023, which is going to provide us with our first sort of 1,000-person convention conference center space in the city. And for years, we had to turn away large meetings and conferences because we just didn't have the space to hold the people. I'm curious, when you talked about one boutique hotel and one convention-style hotel, any specs on the convention-style hotel that you can actually share with us?
Right now, our vision is to have it, because again, it's in the second phase, Mayor and council members. It is a 300-key convention hotel. We do envision having convention space within it for conferences. We haven't figured out the final footprint of that hotel, But one of the visions that we had is obviously we have our 3,500 person theater that could also be part of the convention gathering opportunity for the city of Tempe. We also, of course, have given you all the right of usage of the arena as well. So it's not just the hotel component, it's actually the gathering space as well that we thought was very important. And we've given various options. The vision that we have is to host major events. You're talking about the Frozen Four in the NCAA hockey. You're talking about regional finals for NCAA basketball. You did see in the video us having many uses. This is going to be a world-class multi-use entertainment facility, not just a hockey arena. And so as part of that, we believe that this is giving an option to the city of Tempe that it currently doesn't have to host large gatherings, large conferences, large meetings, and as well as adding the additional hotel space.
And the floor of the arena itself isn't always a sheet of ice. It can be covered during the season, and during the off-season, of course, it's concrete. That's also a great space to have convention-type meetings, presentations, large groups, et cetera.
Yeah, that's an intriguing proposal to me because you know, one of the things, some of us were actually in Kansas City last week for the National League of Cities conference, and one of the things that a couple of us kept saying was, how could we actually find a way to bring a conference of this magnitude to the city of Tempe? And one of the things I think we all sort of learned was, it takes not just simply 1,000 person conference center, you have to have 2 or 3 hotels of that size and magnitude to be able to accommodate all the people who are coming in, not just elected officials, but frankly, corporations and small and medium-sized businesses that many times attend the expos that are launching and piloting new, very innovative ideas. And those are clearly the kinds of conferences and the people that we would like to attract to come here and spend money here and frankly, open up new businesses in our town. So the notion of having a second hotel that will be like the Omni, which will also be a gem, is something that's particularly attractive to me. My last question, and I promise, is I've seen many things about the work you're already doing in the community with some of these school districts and nonprofit organizations. I've seen a food drive you did with the Tempe Elementary School District a few days ago. There was also work I know you've done in the past with Tempe Community Action Agency, and you've done even work with our Tempe Fire Medical Rescue Group when it comes to kind of water safety. Are we not asking for kind of like one necessarily large contribution to one nonprofit organization within the city, because we've got so many that are doing tremendous work each and every day, but just curious about, will you make a commitment to be involved in our nonprofit community with our 501c3s that are doing a lot of work with a lot of underserved communities that do desperately need our support?
Mayor, council members, I said earlier, this isn't about words, this is about actions. We've already put into actions our commitment to this community, and we will continue to do that. This isn't something that is ancillary to who we are as an organization. This is core to our business plan. I think you've already seen it. We are already, I will point out, literally the very first day after our last game last season, we were at Tempe High School doing physicals for families that could not afford their children to get physicals for sports activities. That was literally 6 a.m. the next day. We are here, we are proud to be here, and we look forward to continuing to be here and making a difference in this community, which is our community.
Thank you, really appreciate it. That ends my questions. Council members, any further questions or comments on your end? I've just been saving those up. Yes, Councilmember DeVar.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the presentation, but thank you to the residents, the people that came up here and spoke tonight. I know that this has been a long process, and we're going through with such detail. In my opinion, this is probably a process for the times, because I've never been involved in anything like this, in making sure that we are doing absolutely the right thing for our community, and absolutely turning every stone over to make sure that this is the right product. And I have to say, for both of us, I think it's a great destinational spot where it's placed in the community. But on our end, and I think for us as a community, it's about revenue. It's about our services here in town. It's about our public safety. It's about the programs that we're trying to achieve. It's about affordable housing that we have exceeded beyond my imagination where we would be at today. But this right here is a potential deal that is a win that I think a lot of cities would dream about to make sure it's done right. And I think the process has worked very well on this. And I just want to appreciate the time and the effort that everyone has put in tonight, especially with our community, but especially to the Coyotes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Devar. Any other council members further comments or questions? All right, seeing none.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Vice Mayor Adams.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. It's very, very thorough and informative, and I enjoyed it. So I appreciate the presentation. I just was wondering what, just have a question about sustainability practices in the new building. Like, what are you guys planning on doing to address sustainability?
Mayor, Council Member Adams, hopefully you feel better. Vice Mayor, my apologies. Thank you for
Thanks.
that. No, I think that's an excellent question, and that's actually something that we are very focused on. You know, we for sure are going to have a commitment to being top of class when it comes to sustainability. One of the very first actually charrettes that we had was with the ASU Center for Sustainability, where we were trying to bring in best practices from throughout the world. We think this is a showpiece opportunity to show what a development can do in difficult climates. And so we're excited to explore that. We don't have all the answers yet on that, so I'll be very transparent on it, but it is an area of opportunity because not only is it the right thing to do, it's the right business decision to make. This is going to be a development that we envision being here for a very long time. And we know that the climate issues, especially in this community, will continue to be severe. And so we see it as, again, the right thing to do, but it's the right decision to make for our facility to be able to be something that is enjoyed by many. One of the things that I will offer is that Alex Morello has said from day one that what he would love to see is someone going from one end of the district to the other end of the district 365 days a year. And in order to be able to do that, we will have to continue to look at all the best technologies for, shading, for cooling, and for doing so in a sustainable manner. And we will be doing that.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Adams. Any other further comments or questions from council? Sounds good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, so next up here, we're going to bring up Tom Dunsing, our Deputy City Manager and CFO, as well as Donna Kennedy, our Economic Development Director. So they're going to cover, Tom's part's going to be financial stability and vitality, as well as our finance and bonding. And Donna's obviously going to talk about public benefits that would be potentially brought by this project. So Donna and Tom.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Council members. As the Mayor mentioned, Donna Kennedy, Economic Development Director, along with Tom Dunsing, here as our Deputy City Manager. So after seeing that video, I just have to say, I watch hockey on TV all the time. How exciting to see that video, to know to be part of that action. So thank you for putting that together and showing us how it could look, to have us at least have that dream of the potential for it. Economic development is in charge of business attraction, retention, and expansion. And this opportunity for this site, when it came available, we issued the RFP in July of 2020. And the thought process on that is this will complete, I don't want to use the word puzzle, but we have the IDEA campus just adjacent to this. That's innovation, discovery, education, and art. This mixed-use entertainment district would complement that. Both of these projects are, you're aware, we have our innovation hubs. This is our Lake District Innovation Hub, and it meets all the goals of what our innovation hub should bring. Before I go any further, I just really would like to thank the community for their patience on this. I know there's been a lot of advertising on this over the past couple years, and especially our department has had to be mum on this. But, now we're able to share everything. So hopefully the information that we provide tonight will help them in the decision-making from here on. I'd like to thank the Mayor and Council for their direction and input over the years on this. We know some of you have even been here longer and prior on past management for the Coyotes, but now with the new owner and this development, it's something that we'd like to bring forward for after your input on it. And I'd like to thank behind the scenes team because that's not enough that goes to them. Sonia Blaine, our city attorney, Maria Lochner on our economic development side, Mark Day in finance. We've got our planning team, as you've already heard from Ryan LeVake and Jeff Tomalevich recently coming on board. And we have Elizabeth Higgins from legal and Shelley Seiler traffic. And along the way, you know, for the past couple years, this has had different iterations. And that's what projects like this do. It's evolving plan. And it's going to evolve not only from today, but in the future. Today's approvals, but there's more to this than just approvals. There's going to be the implementation of the development and then ongoing. Our team will help them get tenants. Our team will help them expand their tenants. Our team will have attraction for new tenants, work with the hotel folks, and hopefully maybe get some conferences here. So I just wanted to give the bigger picture on that. I do believe that Dr. Oliveris is correct as far as when he said we need a plan. I think this is a plan we can react to, especially with economic development, that we could help promote it and see that the plan implementation of the development agreement adheres to all the findings that we have found on it. So one thing else, I'd like to say that it's going to activate our 20-minute city. I know everybody was looking at traffic, but we also look at it as this is community. People in the community are going to be riding their bikes there. They're going to be walking there. It's going to take traffic off the road, but for eventually when Idea Campus is built up, that's 3,000 to 4,000 jobs right there. There's opportunities for them to live next door and walk to work. So, you know, traffic, as Shelley said, on a phase by phase, you're going to be looking at it in different perspectives over the years as each phase comes on. So our presentation overview, we're going to look at the economic impact and public benefits. I know the team before, they gave us, like Mr. Oliveira said, he likes education on hockey. I think we got Hockey 101 today with all that information that we give. But our job is to make sure that we understand the gift clause issue of state statute, that incentives and public benefits have to align. You can't give more incentives than you have public benefits. And the financial analysis, Tom will review. So as stated, capital investment, $1.9 billion, the debt service over $440 million. This goes to public infrastructure investment of $229 million plus debt service is estimated to be at $213 plus. So half is paid by the city with the taxes and half by the developer. The economic impact has mentioned $13.6 billion. Fiscal impact total with the government taxes is $397 million, but the fiscal impact received to the city is $198.6 million. Public benefits, I know that was also mentioned.
One too far.
Oh, did I go over two? Oh. So public benefits here, as far as the naming rights, we've been evaluating all these with our Hunden strategic partners. You can see the list here. I won't go through all of them, but this is how detailed we get as far as looking what the cost would be to make sure the incentives of the GPLET are secured with the development agreement. So moving forward, because you know people will be looking and eyeing on this throughout the region. There's going to be different groups looking at this. But we can assure you we've analyzed this, we've put this together and worked with our city attorney to make sure that this is all in compliance. I think that's you.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Tom Dunsing, Deputy City Manager, and actually former student of Dr. Louis Olivas 34 years ago at ASU, so it was really nice to see him. I'm going to start with public infrastructure. I'll go into this sort of a high-level public financing overview of this. There's been a ton of work put in by staff on this, days, nights, weekends, on both sides, both the developer and city staff. And so it's been quite an effort to get here tonight. So what you see in front of you is basically a summary of the public infrastructure that would go on this site. Public infrastructure is normally things that the city would pay for. And basically, and I'll get into it a little bit, the way this deal is structured is this public infrastructure would be repaid with revenues generated on the site. Those revenues are taxes, those revenues are surcharges. Those are the two primary sources, and the surcharges are levied by the developer. Talk to you a little bit about the dollar amount. What you see here is a list totaling $208 million. There is an additional allowance of $20 million for site remediation, and very simply, as Mr. Wood referred to a little bit earlier, we don't know what's below the ground. So all the numbers that you've seen have been run on a more conservative or higher estimate. Whether or not we need that to actually execute the project, we'll just see when the project starts. A little bit about the land transaction. Developers to pay the city $50 million, as Mr. Wood referred to. $40 million of that is for phase one, $10 million is for phase two. And like was stated, the $40 million is actually non-refundable. That money will be used to kickstart the remediation. Once we issue the bonds, we would reimburse the city for that $40 million. So that $40 million and actually the $50 million is cash coming to the city that does not have restrictions. The land will then be cleaned, and this $50 million we actually have to pay, or this site will pay between $73 and $93 million to actually remediate it. So it's quite a dirty site, and it's quite a big effort to remediate this site. A little bit about the public benefits. What you'll see here on the left are the gyplet abatement values, and you can see over the life of the project, they total about $99 million. What you see on the right is the actual public benefits. The public benefits, and that Donna showed in the slide earlier, $240 million coming to the city. In addition to that, as was alluded to earlier, the developer will actually impose a surcharge of $240 million, and that surcharge is to go for the repayment of the bonds that benefit this site. So let me get into the financial terms a little bit. I'm not going to focus too much on the larger project. You've seen a lot of it. What I'm going to really hone in on is the public infrastructure and the protections around the public infrastructure. So it's a $2.1 billion project, at least $2.1 billion. You can see the different amenities that $2.1 million funds. Primarily the arena, and really, from my estimation, what makes this unique, and Mr. Wood said it so eloquently, this is a significant arena that's privately funded. It's first in the state of Arizona, first arena in Arizona that's been privately funded. And you can see the other development here: music theater, headquarters, practice facility, and significant retail, hotel, and residential, and office on this site. So let me focus now, kind of zero in on the public infrastructure. As we saw in the previous slide, we anticipate public infrastructure costs between $209 and $229 million. Again, the estimates have been run at the higher number, just to give it a little bit of conservatism. This is the snapshot of the site plan, and really the idea behind this is to kind of get a vision of what the CFD is, what the Community Facilities District is. So the public infrastructure will go and be constructed to benefit this site. Again, totaling $229 million. You can see the different types of infrastructure on here. There's also $10 million set aside for to clear the right of first refusal on the property. And so this really clears the site and gets it ready for development. Here's another quick view of the CFD and the CFD boundary. What is a CFD? A CFD is a separate legal entity that Arizona state laws allows cities to do. It's a very common mechanism for cities to go out and benefit certain areas, and then the property owners within that area basically pay back the benefits that have been constructed in this area. Boundaries are established, and so you can see the black line around this. And the plan is to issue CFD bonds. And the bonds are repaid from revenues within this district. So in this illustration, the public infrastructure within this district are being repaid with the revenues generated within this district. About half of it, roughly, and I won't get into the detailed numbers, comes from city taxes. I've got a slide on that. And then the other half, arguably a little bit more, comes from the developer and then from these developer-imposed surcharges.
Really quick, Tom, Councilmember Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tom. So just to be clear on this, if I never go to the Tempe Entertainment District, will any of my tax money go to repay these bonds for infrastructure?
Mayor, members of the council, the quick answer is no. Again, the revenues generated on this site will pay for the public infrastructure that's put on this site.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Vice Mayor Adams.
I just want to point out something that is missing, and that is the fact that we have probably 300 employees out there on that site working year after year on a dump is definitely a public benefit to getting them out of there and getting it all cleaned up. So I just don't want to forget about our long-term employees that have lived in and worked in that in that structure. Thank you.
Thank you. And just really quickly too, I know, I think Donna talked about how, over time, projects of this size and magnitude tend to evolve and change a little bit. So I know at one point Bluebird was talking about using a different kind of public financing entity to do this project. That's no longer being done. Instead, that's being replaced by the Community Facilities District, correct?
That's exactly correct, Mayor.
Okay, yeah, because I had questions from a couple of residents over the last couple of days who had talked about that previous iteration of the project, and I kind of wanted to make sure that people knew that this is the new funding mechanism, is the CFD, and that the other one was a previous one that's no longer being utilized. So.
Sure. If there's additional questions on that, we've got Tempe's bond counsel on this deal, Tim Stratton, sitting in the office, and he can talk as long as you want to hear about bond financing. So let's talk a little bit about revenue allocation. There's been a lot of discussion on this, and I think this slide actually lays it out very well. What you see in the three boxes on top are basically the sales taxes, bed taxes, and property taxes that would be generated on this site. And the revenue allocation, as in the development agreement, is basically split as follows: 50-50 for the TPT. That's your general sales tax. You go buy, a soda, you go buy a shirt out there from a retailer. It's 50-50 split on the sales tax generated on those transactions. City hotel bed tax, again, is only on the hotel bed tax generated at the site. The hotel bed tax generated at any other hotel, it's not affected to this. Don't go to repay the bonds. City property taxes, you see the split. City retains about 77%, 23% goes to repay the bonds. Now the green box is the developer imposed surcharge. So the way this works, if the taxes are not enough to make the annual debt service payments, the developer would impose a surcharge. And at this point, the estimates are that surcharge would probably pay for more than half of our bonded debt service, the bonded debt service of public infrastructure. Then the last box on there are CFD assessments, and that really is the safety net. And I'll talk a little bit about that on the last slide, but there will be an assessment lien placed on the properties within the CFD that provides that last level of assurance that our debt service gets made every year.
So Tom, really quick thing. So what you're saying, I just want to make sure I totally understand. All of this project, the Tempe Entertainment District, all of the buildings, the arena, practice facility, the hotels, the multifamily apartments, everything. So if for whatever reason this doesn't generate the amount of money that we think it will, the last sort of not last ditch efforts, but the kind of the backstops, I guess I should say, to make sure that everything is recouped at the end of the day would be the developer imposed surcharge and the CFD assessments. And therefore, the CFD assessments would only be obviously for all of the projects imposed within the Tempe Entertainment District. So
Correct. Community Facilities District. You are exactly correct,
yeah.
Mayor.
And I just think that's important to note too, just because that was one of the questions that I had for quite some time was, when the Bluebird team would talk about how the fact that our taxpayers were not going to be on the hook, and the only people who would actually end up paying for this at the end of the day are people who end up visiting the TED for short. That this structure allows that to make sure that that's actually going to be the case. That even if for whatever reason the revenue projections are off by a little bit, at the end of the day we would use these two things at the bottom in the green and orange to make sure that we actually are able to do the debt service on the bonds.
Yes. Yeah, and I'd like to say real quick, there is the revenue estimates by the developer. We actually had an independent, Hunden, come in and do revenue estimates, and the estimates on both are very close. So finally, last slide, city protections. Again, the significant portion of this, almost $2 billion, is privately funded. So the developer is very much incented to make this development work, to recoup that investment. CFD, it's a separate legal entity. As Mr. Wood explained, that any debt of the CFD, the $200 million, is debt of this separate legal entity and not of the city. It won't be on the city's balance sheet. The initial $40 million land purchase is actually non-refundable. So if the payment is made and put into escrow and everything folds, the city gets $40 million, and I would anticipate we would continue with remediation, but that is non-refundable. Again, $209 to $229 million in bonds. I've said it many times, repaid with revenues generated at this site. The estimate of the city revenues to repay the debt service, $216 million. There is a cap. The cap is $247 million. So under no circumstances will we ever go over $247 million of revenues generated at that site to repay bonds. Projected developer revenues, and this is the surcharge, is about $240 million. That is not capped. The city's is, the developers is not. And finally, the bonds issued on this, and Mr. Wood talked about it much more eloquently than I can, are going to be issued in phases. And one of the things the developer has to do is secure financing on each phase before we go and we issue bonds on these phases. So it just speaks to the security of these bonds. And these bonds are subordinate to any other debt on this property. There will be assessment liens, I talked about a little bit earlier, placed on all the properties within this CFD. They are senior to everything else except property taxes. And so it will be ahead of the line of any developer financing. So with that, that is our last slide. We'd be happy to answer any questions, and I understand this stands between us and a long weekend. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer, Mayor.
Thank you, Tom. Great presentation. Anyone from council, comments or questions? Councilmember Chin.
Just a comment. Tom, thank you. Those slides were great, and you have taken all the time, and you have been so patient with me through this process in taking me back to econ, both 101 and 201. But the slides tonight really helped crystallize things for me. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Chin. Any other council members, comments or questions? Councilmember Hodge.
I just want to go right back to what Councilmember Keaton said and ask the same question again. Is there any way that the taxpayers of Tempe will be paying for this arena at all? Because that's a question that I continue to get, and I want to answer. I wanted it on the record that I asked that question out loud.
Sure, Mayor, members of the council. Outside this CFD, the answer is no. If they go and shop in the CFD, attend events in the CFD, then a portion of that would go to it, but it's only the activity that this particular development generates.
And that's their decision to go into that. That has nothing to do. Okay. Just want to add that to it too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sounds good. Councilmember Garland.
Okay, so just explaining to me about talking about the bonds. So once the CFD bonds are paid for, that shows that the city is getting the 25 and then of the 25% of the taxes that were coming in. So then once the bonds are paid for, we get 100%.
Yes, ma'am.
About that.
Once the bonds are paid for, we get 100%. There is, if this particular project performs exceptionally well, there's the possibility that we have call provisions on the bonds, which basically means we can get out of the debt earlier. And so, time will tell on that, but the sooner we get out of it, the 100% of the revenues come right to the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Councilmember Keating.
Actually, Mayor, Mr. Dunsing just answered my question, which is going to be what happens if the bonds are paid off earlier than expected. Thank you, Mr. Dunsing.
Thank you, Councilmember Keating. Let's see, any of the council members' comments or questions? All right, so just a quick note, and just want to say, Tom, and just, thank you to all of the staff for all of the work that's been done here on this. I know it's been a lengthy process. And And I just, and this is just frankly just something else, and I'm sure I'll probably say this at the next meeting as well, but, it's sometimes it can be challenging to hear when people are sort of talking about, we get emails every now and then, or we see social media posts with people talking about, this conversation is happening in secret and there's no transparency with relation to any of this. The fact of the matter is, this is a project that you talked about that is a minimum of a $2.1 billion project. And I've been sitting up here now for 10 and a half years, and I've never, with the staff, typically, they always do a tremendous job when it comes to vetting everything, but they have spent so much time literally turning over every stone and looking at each and everything and every aspect of this project, along with bringing in outside help as well to ensure that we had all the resources we needed to really fully evaluate everything related to this Tempe Entertainment District project. And so I just needed to address that, because sometimes I get really worried when I see some of those comments circulating, and I worry, as an elected official, I'm used to hearing things of that nature, but I really do sometimes, I worry about, and I feel very protective of our staff and our team and the people who work on these deals each and every day. The job that you have all done to really thoroughly evaluate and look at each and every aspect of this deal, from the public benefits to the traffic issues, to the airport concerns, to the finances. I could frankly go on, but it has been a tremendously heavy lift, and you've all done such an exceptional job from the beginning to the end of this. I know we still have one more meeting next week on Tuesday, the 29th, but I just wanted to make sure to acknowledge that and to tell people, the reality is the way that we have done this deal is how every other deal gets done within the city of Tempe when it comes to negotiations. And we've actually done more work on this deal to really ensure that the residents are getting a great deal and are protected. And so, there's no secrecy. Everything is frankly done in complete transparency. We released over 200 pages of documents late last week, along with a Cliffs Notes version as well. If you don't have time to go through 200 pages, you can just hit the high notes, and two opportunities really to come in. I know Mr. Wood has talked about coming in next week and doing another full presentation. So if people didn't have the opportunity to attend this evening, they can come on the 29th and also hear the same presentation and make up their minds for themselves about what they think about this project. But once again, we're all very used to sometimes some of the criticism we can receive, but I wanted to make sure that I acknowledged our staff here today, because the work that you do is absolutely tremendous, and you're the reason why all of us, frankly, get to look so good sitting up here. So I just wanted to say thank you for all of your hard work and for doing everything you can to turn over every stone and try to bring this council a good deal. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The staff's exceptional. They are.
All right. Is there anyone else wishing to address the council this evening? If so, please get my attention. Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
My name's Michael Pappas. I live on 55 West 13th Street. Mayor, council members, thanks for doing this. It's really important. I think it's a good project to go forward with. That aside, one of the things I want to raise is the impact that it'll have on youth hockey, as have this being a magnet center for teams to come down from all over the country and all over the world to play hockey here in the middle of the summer. You're going to have, between Mullet Arena, this complex, Oceanside, and then the Arcadia, you've got 6 sheets. You'll have 1,000 people, coming down every week for a week to go play hockey all week, and then eat and drink and shop. And so you're gonna have people from all over the world coming down to really see what City of Tempe is all about. And then on top of that, you have something like World Juniors perhaps someday, where you're broadcasting worldwide to people all during the day. You can show off you can show off the valley at night. It's the way. The opportunities are limitless. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council this evening? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Council, any last comments or discussion? Seeing none, once again, just reiterating, there is no vote to be taken this evening, but the second and final public hearing will be scheduled for next Tuesday, November 29th, 2022, where a final vote will be taken. With that said, that moves us to item number 3, which is adjournment. We are adjourned at 8:58 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.